Hello friends. This is Phoenix What If. How are you all? So in this video, we will see. What if Naruto fell in love with Kūkaku Shiba in Bleach Verse? But before we start, if you want more amazing stuff like this, then be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video. Also if possible share this video. Well, this is my first story I am writing and I hope you find it to your liking. I mainly decided to write this because I have read many Bleach x Naruto crossovers that I loved but sadly were not finished, so I decided that I should take a crack at writing my own version. This story will be about Naruto dying. I do not plan on making him overly powerful that he could destroy anybody in like 2 seconds, but he will grow powerful over time. It starts in the Valley of the End also. Disclaimer. I do not own Naruto and or Bleach in any way or form. Naruto thought as he cracked open his eyes. What was going on? Where is Sasuke? Did he win? All these thoughts were buzzing through Naruto's mind as regained consciousness. He looked around and noticed he was no longer laying on the ground after his clash with Sasuke's Dark Chidori. Sorry, don't know the technique's name in Japanese. Glancing around, he noticed that he was floating above the ground and that his body was laying there unmoving with Sasuke standing above it. What is this, a genjutsu? Putting his hands together in the ram seal, he attempted to release the genjutsu but found that he couldn't even locate any chakra in his body. With his eyes widening, Naruto went into a panic and started to shout. Kai, damn it. Why is it not working? Kukaku. Dobi, it seems you're finally dead. At least you were somewhat useful by providing me with the power I need to defeat Itachi. Naruto quickly glanced down to see Sasuke looking towards the clouds as it started to rain, and true to his words, Sasuke's Sharingan had changed into the all too familiar eyes of the Mangekyo Sharingan. Naruto blinked slowly, processing the words that had left Sasuke's mouth, and wished that he had not have heard them. Is that all I was to him, a stepping stone to power? That Teme doesn't care that he killed no murdered his best friend. It was then that Naruto had a terrible realization. I am dead. No. Naruto began to clutch his chest where he noticed he had a chain attached to where his heart was supposed to be located. No, I can't be dead. I haven't become Hokage yet. I haven't gotten Sasuke to return to the village. There is so much I still have to do and all the promises I made that aren't complete. Naruto, it seems that you have failed and that Sasuke has escaped. Naruto stared at his sensei's indifference to his death with nothing less than shock. With his mouth wide open, he watched as Kakashi scooped up his body and carried him back to Konoha. Naruto rose from his kneeling position and tried to follow Kakashi but found he couldn't get very far as he noticed the chain on his chest seemed to be bolted to thin air. So Naruto did what he thought would be best. He yanked at it and tugged and pulled with all of his might. Fucking thing just snap already, god damn it. He kept yanking till an audible snap was heard, and looking down to notice that his chain was now broken at the end. He quickly dismissed it and began to run to where his sensei was heading, but what he failed to notice was the tiny mouths that began to bite and chew upon the chain's end. As Naruto ran across the sky, he noticed that Kakashi was taking his time and that he had caught up to him a little too quick for his liking. Eventually they had reached the gates of Konohagakure. Kakashi walked in a couple feet before noticing the crowd that had come to greet him. Sakura, Tsunade, Shizune, Shikamaru, Danzo, Gaara and his siblings, Hinata, and Hiruzen, Sarutobi's former teammates Koharu and Homura. They all looked at Kakashi expectantly, each wanting to know a different thing from, is Naruto alright, or, is Sasuke alright, or, did the Dobi complete his promise? Kakashi report. Tsunade decided to take charge and break the silence. Uzumaki, Naruto was Kia, unfortunately due to his former teammates Chidori believed to be jabbed into his chest twice. A silence overtook the crowd, each wearing a different face. Tsunade wearing a saddened look along with Hinata, Shikamaru wearing a lazy face but you could see tears looking closely enough, which Naruto was not. Koharu and Homura wore a pleased look, Danzo a disappointed look, and Sakura she had an angry look. In fact, her face was becoming very red and tick marks began to appear on her head. It very much confused Naruto, who couldn't tell what she was feeling due to his lack of experience, plus it did not help that a shadow had overcast the top half portion of her face. And where is he? Sakura looked at Kakashi, who in reply removed Naruto from the piggyback position and laid him out in front of the group. Sakura looked at the body of her former teammate with seething anger in her eyes. She slowly began walking her way over to him, and with every step her anger became more vicious. Every step a thought to fuel the fire pooped into her head. Sakura, I realized I loved you. Step. Oh Sasuke, I love you too. Step. Oh Sasuke, of course I will marry you. Step. It's a boy. Step. Haino told you I would win. She stood with Naruto's body at her feet. She looked at him. Blood was all over his orange jumpsuit along with holes and burnt rips. Her eyes scanned over his face, which had a somewhat calm look on it with neither a smile or a frown. Carefully she knelt down and brought her face close to his till their noses were almost touching, and she looked directly in his unopened eyes and stared for what seemed like a minute, but to Naruto, well, he couldn't be happier. She was finally noticing. Although he was dead, he knew he had made a place in her heart, and he was right, he did make a place in her heart. I fucking hate you, Uzumaki Naruto, you fucking loser. With that said, she proceeded to spit in his face and throw his body into the nearest tree, splitting it in half easily with her enraged strength. Naruto just stared at the object of his affection, fuming and stomping away from the crowd, leaving cracks in the streets that she walked upon. He turned his head back to his body that now had various chunks of wood impaling his body, and his face painted crimson with his blood except for the blob of spit right on his right eye. Naruto just stared at the scene and attempted to process what was going on. His love that he would give anything in the world for hated him. How was he supposed to handle this? Why did he have to watch this? Is this his punishment? Was he not good enough in life to go to heaven? Was he a demon? Naruto's mouth began to twitch, his face contorted into a sorrowful one, and he began to break down. Why me? Why does it have to happen to me? Why do you hate my very existence? Damn it, give me an answer. Answer me, Fuick. As Naruto started to vent out his rage and rant to the heavens, he failed to notice his ever shorter chain began to disappear at an alarmingly faster rate and still slowly began to eat the remaining pieces of his chain. 3 weeks later, Konoha was ever vibrant, and all of the villagers seemed to more happy and more friendly ever since his death. He watched what happened to the village since his death, and it drove him insane. How come they got to experience happiness and yet he was deprived of it? He was beaten and tortured during his childhood, and the people who had done that had received happiness. For the past 3 weeks he had watched the village grow happier from his death. Even his friends were fine without him. No one seemed to care for him. Did I not matter to anyone? Is there no one to weep for me? Naruto stared down at where his funeral was to take place and looked with open confusion as he didn't see his Ba-chan or even Hinata. In fact, none of his friends seemed to be there. Naruto didn't know, but the friends that wanted to come were forbidden by the parents and carefully watched to make sure they didn't go, whether from their own aid of the boy or for their child's safety, as they knew what would happen this day. As for Tsunade, she could be found passed out with multiple sake bottles loitering her desk and floor in the Hokage Tower. So it is true then. There is no one that cares for me. No one mourns my death. Yeah, we're gonna show him. Oh, he will pay for what he did. He doesn't deserve a funeral because those are for humans, not pitiful demons. Yeah. Naruto turned his head to the collective cheer of the mob approaching his open casket, and he gasped in horror as when the mob approached, one of the members charged forward wielding a pitchfork and toppled over his casket. The rest of the mob charged forward and dragged his body out of the casket, piercing it in whatever location they could get with whatever they were carrying, whether it was kunai, katana, pitchfork, spear, crowbar, broken 2x4. After having fun opening up old wound and creating new gashes on his corpse, they decided to put him back in the coffin, but not before mutilating his eyes beyond repair and disemboweling him, spilling his intestines and other various organs into his casket. It looked as though the mob was finally retreating until one pulled out a rather big bottle of liquor and stuffed part of Naruto's ninja headband's cloth part into the bottle and put a cork in the opening of the bottle. A fellow mob member pulled out his lighter and lit the cloth outside the bottle on fire, and then they tossed the now dangerous flaming bomb at the casket, yelling, "Burn in hell, demon!" Naruto gazed at his burning body and openly cried at himself. Down on his knees and hands he stayed there just crying and felt one thing at the moment. Pain. Immeasurable pain. Clink. Naruto clutched at the chain where his heart was supposed to be at and widened his eyes in shock upon noticing the last of his chain was disappearing from his chest, and could only watch as what little remains that were left had finally ceased to exist. In that moment Naruto instantly clutched at his head and the hole that now replaced his heart and screamed in agony. It was a scream that was heard all over Konoha. For unknown reasons some people just began to cry at hearing the scream, only imagining a fraction of the pain that the person producing the scream was in. Naruto in the meanwhile began to change. He hunched over on all fours and blobs of white began pouring out from all over his body, completely covering him from head to toe. His hand and feet also began to change, morphing into claws, and his leg bones began to crack and repair themselves to adjust to being a quadruped. At the end of his spine 9 tails began to burst forth, each sharply pointed at the tip and all in the same whitish hardened armor that had come out of his body. Finally the globs of white appeared over his face and began to form a mask of sorts. The mask formed long pointed ears such as a certain fox demon and covered his face, only leaving 2 eye holes and a mouth with sharpened teeth with a little swirl in the middle of the forehead. With his hollow hole located exactly where Sasuke stabbed his first Chidori. Basically it's a white version of Naruto's Kyuubi 4-tailed transformation except with more tails, and it's white as all hollows start out, and don't worry, I plan on modifying it later on, but he is just a beginning hollow, remember. Completely worn out, Naruto decided to check himself out, and well, his reaction was very predictable. Holy shit, what the fuck happened to me? Naruto wailed and screamed and then noticed his tails were trying to calm him down by rubbing his sides. Tails? Oh fuck, what else could happen? As if a garganta opened in the sky and began to drag him off to what would become his new home for many centuries to come. A place where all hollow are located, where they fight to become the top they could be and kill to feed their hunger. The place with white sands and many dangers, a place named Hueco Mundo. My head feels like it was crushed by Gaara's Sabaku Q. Naruto lifted his head up and looked around to assess his surroundings, and using all his logic he came up with one conclusion. I must be in some sort of desert. Yep, that sounds good. Naruto proceeded to try to stand up, only to fall back on his underbelly. Unfortunately, he wasn't all that used to being a quadruped yet without the Kyuubi controlling him or fueling his instincts. After a couple of trials and errors he finally managed to stand and began to trek his way through the desert one step at a time. It's just one foot in front of the other, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. Naruto's thoughts were interrupted as he bumped into a giant ape-like creature. Upon closer look he noticed the ape-like creature also had a hole in his chest and some sort of mask too. Of course Naruto had to look up at this creature as it was close to double his size. The massive gorilla-like creature also had a small pair of arms on its back and some sort of pincers. For longer he looked, the more Naruto began to notice how good-looking the ape was. No, not in the physical sense, but in the freshly cooked turkey on a platter with a cup of wine next to it while you were starving in the desert kinda way. He also started to notice the ape was also looking at him in the same manner, and so they kept staring until the ape lashed out with his right arm, hoping to backhand Naruto into the sand. On nothing but instinct, Naruto leapt back a good couple yards in order to dodge the blow, which brought up a bunch of sand spraying like a well. Naruto stared at the sand well until the large ape hollow lunged through the sand with his left hand open, ready to grab Naruto's face and crush his head like a grape. Naruto did the only thing that came to mind and jumped onto the ape's forearm and ran down the ape's arm till it reached the mask and lunged his claws forward, only for the creature to block his claws with his other forearm. Naruto, using his momentum, jumped off the over forearm and was aiming to get behind the creature until the second set of arms grabbed his hind legs and flung him back in front of the ape into the sand. The ape tried once again to crush Ardeer Hollow by using both his arms with fists clenched shut and slamming them onto him, but Ardeer Fox rolled away at the last second. Quickly rising at his opportunity, Naruto lunged at the beast but was quickly grabbed when the ape rose its body using its 2 main arms and grabbed Naruto with its pincer-like foot. Now little Hollow, you die. The ape raised its other foot so its pincers had Naruto's neck and slowly began to squeeze. As this where it ends. I am going to die again. No, I will not be as weak as I was in my life, I will be stronger, I will not die here. Thinking on his feet, Naruto plunged his tails into the ankle of the foot with its pincer around his neck and shredded it till it fell, staining the white sands red with blood. Naruto lunged backwards once the ape hollow loosened its grip out of shock, Never one to miss his opportunity, Naruto sprinted forward with tails flailing behind him, and with all the power he had launched himself face first into the hollow's face, with his tails piercing the ape's chest, and viciously bit away at the hollow's mask, tearing it to shreds and killing the hollow.
Naruto looked at the dead ape and noticed that one piece of the mask satisfied his hunger, if only a minuscule amount, so he figured devouring the rest of it would help the hunger. Walking over to the new corpse, he started to munch on the hollow's mask and worked his way down until all of the hollow was now stored into his belly, slightly satisfying him. He didn't even forget the foot he severed in their battle.
Man, that's even better than ramen. I guess I might as well go on to eat some more. That is very interesting. Perhaps I should keep tabs on that one for the future. A mysterious voice spoke aloud as it gazed upon the new hollow, wandering off after defeating a fairly powerful hollow. Just to clarify, no, it wasn't really that powerful compared to a Manos or any higher ranking hollow, but for a hollow it was fairly powerful.
Naruto's life eventually became a routine of hunting hollows and defeating them, then eating them to decrease his hunger, and that went on for at least a good century. Of course, he also noticed with all the hollows he devoured he became more powerful, but also the more hollows he devoured the more clustered his body became with souls of kept eating and eating, until one day he came upon a sight he had never seen before. It was a very tall-looking hollow with a plain mask with a long pointy nose. It seemed to have a body that was just a huge black mass of putty.
What in the fuck is that behemoth? Naruto was looking at the thing and just kept staring until an idea went off in his head, a bright one at that in his opinion. I guess the only way to know is to eat it. Naruto grinned at the thought of a challenging fight. Quickly, to use surprise to his advantage, he pounced upon the Jillian's head and tried to pierce its head with his tails, but it didn't seem to work. With tails just couldn't make it deep enough to actually hurt the overly sized beast. Although the beast was absent-minded, it did notice that its head was itching, so it shook its head ferociously about in a succeeded attempt to free it of the itch, and so Naruto was sent flying into the sands, leaving a cloud of dust where he hit. Fuck, that failed. Well, now this bastard knows I'm here, so I lost my surprise. Much to Naruto's shock, the behemoth just kept moving without ever noticing him. Now normally a hollow would be thankful that it could live, but our dear Fox Hollow was nearly the opposite. It was pissed that the Jillian didn't acknowledge his attack on it. Using all of his brain power, Naruto decided to yell at the beast and taunt it.
"You come back here, you pointy-nosed freak. Ya move your ass over here and stop being a coward, jeez you wuss."
Now a Jillian may be absent-minded, but all of the hollows had one thing in common, and that was they could be riled up easily. So with all those thoughts angered, the Jillian turned and charged at our significantly smaller Fox Hollow.
In return, Naruto charged at the Jillian, only to leap in the air and climb upon the Jillian's lower body and race up to the mask of the beast. The Jillian, knowing that Naruto was climbing up, it pointed its face downwards and gathered a large amount of spiritual energy and gathered it in the form of a ball at its mouth and promptly launched a Sero at Naruto, who quickly ran to the edge of the Jillian's body to avoid the Sero. What the hell? It shot a beam of doom at me. Not one to lose his confidence at a mere beam of doom. He continued to the top of the Jillian and jabbed all 9 of his tails into its face, then ran up the mask, tearing it to shreds.
To reduce the damage from falling, Naruto planted his tails into the Manos Grande's forehead and held tight as the beast collapsed into the white sands below. Eager to please his hunger, Naruto chomped down on the Jillian and kept eating until the beast was completely gone, but then something changed in Naruto as his body once again went under a strange pain. Naruto looked around his surroundings and noticed it was a very dark void-like space with other souls just jabbering about, floating around inside the void. He noticed through the 2 holes in the void that he was inside his own body, but his body was changing into something similar to the beast he had just defeated. No, I refuse to become a mindless beast. I will not lose myself and become like these losers. I have to prove them wrong that I'm not a loser. That I am Uzumaki Naruto and I will be the best. With these thoughts in mind, Naruto released all of his spiritual energy and pushed all of the other souls away from his area of the void, and as the mask was forming on his body, it's changed into the mask he wore as a hollow. This began his life as a Jillian. He had evolved, and quickly Naruto decided he would eat till he evolved again and would continue to grow strong to prove himself the best. To prove Konoha wrong, to show them his power. Again, Naruto's life fell into a routine as he ate all the Manos he could find until he came across a strange-looking creature. It looked to be a Shinigami, Naruto noted, but when he looked at the creature it had pieces of mask on his face. So deciding that he couldn't use sneak attacks in the sluggish and rather large form, he charged at the creature unknowing that it was an Arrancar. Noboru Ryunosuke was a proud recent Arrancar who was to be appointed Frashon to the Noveno Espada Araniero Aruruari and was doing his first mission to locate a meal for his boss.
It seemed a little underneath him to do such work, but it had to be done, as if it wasn't completed he might be killed by his boss. Taking a small look around, he heard a rumbling in the distance and saw a Jillian attempting to charge him and looked rather bored as the Manos approached. At least his boss would have some sort of meal.
Naruto kept on charging head first until he noticed he had stopped moving forward. Looking downwards, he noticed the small Shinigami thing was holding him back with but one bare hand. Next thing he knew, he was flying through the air and landing very roughly on the sands below. Not wanting to waste any time, Naruto turned himself upward and launched at the Arrancar, hoping to eat him in one go, and still failed miserably as Noboru merely caught him with both hands and slammed him back into the sands.
"What are you?" Naruto looked at his seemingly stronger opponent in wonder, waiting for a response from the Shinigami hollow thing. "I am Noboru Ryunosuke, recently made Arrancar of the Noveno Espada. I am also the man who will serve you up as a meal for my master." Naruto stared at Noboru in anger. This Arrancar was going to serve him as some meal to his master.
How dare he insult him like this and treat him like something not worthy of gracing his presence, unless to be served with an apple in his mouth and roasted upon open fire. Naruto, with all the anger flowing through him, once again charged and tried to smash his head on the tiny whelp, but was once again held back by Noboru's hands. But this time Noboru lowered Naruto's head to his level and spoke to him.
"You are a rather pathetic Jillian. How did you even become one? You are nothing but a piece of trash."
Naruto looked at the Arrancar, seething in anger at being called weak and a piece of trash, and expectantly lashed out, grabbing a piece of the mask on the Frashon and ripped it off and ate it. The Arrancar in response dropped Naruto and screamed in pain from the unexpected attack and lashed about, frantically clutching at his face in pain.
"Hey, serves that teme right, but something's different. I feel more powerful. I feel pain."
The Arrancar finally stopped thrashing about in time to notice the Jillian getting absorbed into a blinding light, to which he used his forearm to cover his eyes lest he go blind.
What came out of the light amazed and scared him to no end. That little Jillian now stood differently back to being a quadruped and looked quite frightening. Naruto had at first reverted back to his hollow form except in a shade of black, but suddenly he sprouted bones from his back and a skeleton covered his body. Think chapter 438 in the manga when he goes 6 tails, except that he has a skeletal version of that part of the body on every part, including his tails, which he still has 9 of. "Oh, you are dead, Noboru." Naruto lunged at the Espada, who in response desperately charged up a Sero from the palm of his hands and fired it at Naruto. Naruto quickly plunged his tails in the ground and began to swallow Noboru's Sero through his mouth. After completely swallowing the Sero, Naruto opened his mouth and charged his own Sero. Along with the Sero he swallowed and fired it point blank at Noboru, who was disintegrated in the blast by Naruto's orange Sero. Or rather would have if the Arrancar didn't use Sonido to escape the blast last minute. "Impressive to evolve in the middle of battle, but still you cannot hope to kill me, you pathetic Ajukas. You still underestimate me." Naruto lunged at the Arrancar in an attempt in slicing the head off that pre-licked neck of his, but failed as the Arrancar disappeared again with the use of Sonido. "Why don't you just hold still?" Deciding to try a different tactic, planted his tails in the ground so that his body was held up vertically, and once again charged up his Sero and using his tails spun himself in a 360-degree motion, ensuring a critical hit against his foe.
"Above, you fool!" Noboru fell upon Naruto, intending to stab him through the mask before he caused any more problems with his Zanpakuto.
What Noboru was expecting was a slightly better meal for his master, but what happened was anything but expected. The Ajukas just up and vanished in a burst of speed right before his very eyes. His eyes widened to the fullest at that moment as he gazed at the cloud of sand left behind, and only one thought went through his mind at that moment.
Sonido. However, his thoughts didn't last long, as his chest was pierced by a black claw and a skeletal replicate of that claw. He turned his head around to see the Ajukas he thought lower than him shooting a Sero right through his head, and that was the last thing he ever saw. Naruto, on the other hand, was ecstatic, for he learned 2 new moves and got to evolve past his hideous Jillian form and back into this new sleek form. Not only that, but he got to eat a very powerful foe and gain more power.
Unfortunately, his meal was cut short once he was 2/3 of the way down when he suddenly collapsed due to being near such an immense ryotsu. He moved his head across the sand to see a brown-haired Shinigami walking up to him, and by using all his power he lifted himself back onto his legs and glared at the man. My Naruto-kun, not many could withstand this much of my ryotsu. I must say it was a good choice to keep tabs on you throughout the years. Who are you, Shinigami? Aizen chuckled at Naruto's question.
I am no longer a Shinigami, Naruto-kun, but as to who I am the ruler of Hueco Mundo.
Naruto stared in awe at who exactly he was standing before. Here was a man of immense power to be the ruler of Hueco Mundo. What do you want with me? Why, to offer you power, dear Naruto-kun, to become an Arrancar. An Arrancar, you say? I accept, Aizen-sama. I was hoping to hear that, Naruto-kun.
Aizen led Naruto back to his palace in Hueco Mundo, and they walked throughout the many twisting and wandering hallways inside of the palace till they were at a room where Aizen performed his transformations with use of the Hogyoku. Leading Naruto to the center of the room, he began to perform the necessary steps to use the Hogyoku to its fullest potential to bring out the best Arrancar Naruto could become. After a great flash of light, there stood in the center of the room a teenage-looking blonde-haired male with a lean look, going not overly muscled but still had some standing, at around 5 feet 11 or 180.34 centimeters if you prefer centimeters. On his face were the remnants of his mask, leaving crescent marks under his eyes, and his fox-like ears attached to a strand of his old mask going across his forehead. Skinnier than the headband. But all you could see was white fox-like ears poking out of his hair, which resembled his father's and covered his headband-like part of his mask. Naruto looked up at Aizen and asked, "You got any pants?"
Well, it seems my beginning chapter was alright to some degree. It was nice to receive some reviews and notice all of the story alerts, and it made me happy, but I cannot let that go to my head, and I will just say some necessary things about the story that might be of interest.
First, this story will not be a harem fic because usually they do not work out, and I received a review requesting it not to be. Also, I wouldn't know how to write a decent one. And no, a decent harem isn't just the main character sleeping with everyone. Second, well, I really do not have a second thing to talk about, so I will just get to writing the story now. You got any pants? Naruto looked up at Aizen with an innocent face, just staring into his as if he was digging through his soul like he would with shovel and sand. Aizen stared back at Naruto with a look of confusion painted onto his face. It was then that Aizen noticed that the blonde-haired Arrancar was indeed and without a pair of pants, leaving his manhood out for the rest of the occupants of Hueco Mundo to see, if not for both his hands trying to cover up what they could.
Oh, of course, Naruto-kun, how silly of me. Would you please get me an outfit for our newest Arrancar? Being more of a statement than a question, Aizen ordered an unknown Arrancar to fetch Naruto some clothes so he wouldn't have to walk around the place. While the unknown Arrancar was out gathering the clothes, Naruto took the time to try to stand up on his legs, adjusting to now being bipedal once again. After what seemed to be around 5 minutes or so, the unnamed Arrancar came back with the typical black and white Arrancar uniform. Here you are, Aizen-sama. Thank you, you may leave now. Hi. Here you go, Naruto-kun. Putting his hands out to receive his new clothes, Naruto looked at Aizen with a tint of red on his face from embarrassment. Could you turn around, Aizen-sama? Oh, silly me, of course I will, Naruto-kun. Meet me at the end of the hall when you're done, would you?
Hi. So Naruto put on the standard Arrancar uniform, but he left his collar open so he could breathe easier. Naruto noticed that there was a sheathed Zanpakuto in an orange sheath laying right next to him, so Naruto picked it up, tied his sash around it so it wouldn't fall from his changing. Naruto walked out of the room used for the Arrancar ritual and turning his head from side to side till he located at which end of the hallway Aizen was at and jogged towards him. Aizen made a gesture for Naruto to follow him and proceeded to lead him through the twisting passageways of the palace and was led into a room with a rather large table with 13 those chairs were 10 Arrancar. Now this was all very confusing for Naruto, so he looked to Aizen for an explanation. Naruto, these are the Espada. The Espada are a group I made of my 10 most powerful Arrancar ranging from 0 to 9. I will name them to you from most powerful to least powerful. First we have Stark A.N. Yes, I know there are 2 R's, but that is how it is correctly written, the Primera Espada. Second we have Berrigan Lusenbarn, the Segunda Espada. Third we have Nelly L2 Oderschwank, the Tercera Espada. We have Ulquiorra Cipher A.N. Once again, this is how it is correctly spelled. Do not review and say it is Schiffer, as that was a mistake.
The Cuatro Espada. Fifth is Neutra Jaruga, the Quinto Espada. Sixth we have. I do not know who was before Grimjow, but yeah, that guy. The Ta Espada. Seventh we have Zamari Larue, the Septima Espada. Eighth is Zale Aporo Grants, the Octava Espada. Ninth is Araniero Ururueri, the Noveno Espada. And finally we have Yami Rialgo, as he is also the Decima and Cero Espada.
Wait, Yami is both the 10th and 0 Espada. Yes, in his release he is the most powerful, but while not in release he is the weakest Espada. Now for the reason I brought you here, Naruto-kun. I believe one of these Espada wanted you as a fraction. What is a fraction, Aizen-sama? Well, it is a Arrancar who serves directly under one of the Espada. Now which one of you want Naruto as a fraction? Each member of the table had a different look on their face, but mostly they were all examining the newly made Arrancar. The tension in the room was just growing as the silence lingered longer and longer. Each Espada was having an inward battle if the blonde Arrancar was worthy of being their fraction. Neliel2 Oderschwank looked at the new blonde Espada with curiosity. He was unique to say the least. First, he showed emotions besides the usual anger and stoicism. He also had a pair of cute ears, even if they were just remnants of his hollow mask, and with all this in mind she had made her decision. Unfortunately, before she could speak up, another voice made their claim on the freshly made Arrancar. Aizen-sama, I wish to take Naruto as my fraction. All eyes in the room widened a little bit in shock at just who was staking their claim on the Arrancar. My, I would never have guessed that you would ask for our dear Naruto-kun. Seeing as there seems to be voicing any objections, very well, you may take him as your fraction. Naruto looked at his new boss and let a smile grace his lips as he walked on over to him. Naruto was happy when someone finally broke the silence and asked for him to be their fraction. Who would have thought an Espada who pick him? It was indeed a delightful day for our young Arrancar. Is there anything you require, Naruto? Nope, I don't really have any other clothes except for the ones I am wearing right now, so you can lead the way to where your quarters is. How do you pronounce your name? It's pronounced. Back in Konoha, Tsunade was not having a pleasant time. Pain had attacked the village and was utterly dominating her village. She had summoned Katsuyu and dispersed her all over the village to heal her ninja. Unfortunately, some of the slugs did not make it on time to save some of her best ninjas such as Kakashi and Shizune. And now she was fighting pain and was losing terribly. She was worn out from healing the whole village, and now she had to fight the man who was destroying her village without a pinch of help. This is the strongest shinobi village. Rather sad, don't you think, Lady Tsunade? You're gonna pay. Tsunade charged at the diva Pain and swung a mighty roundhouse at his head, trying her best to tear the thing off the neck of her foe, but due to her low reserves she charged rather slow, and Pain simply jumped over her and stretched out his arm and grabbed the top of her head. Shinra Tensai. Those two words had ended the battle as the invisible force crushed Tsunade's body, killing her instantly. Anbu looked on as their leader was crushed in the midst of battle and ran in for vengeance, but were quickly disposed of. Tsunade opened her eyes to see Pain dispatching anybody from Konoha he had seen killing villagers or ninjas left and right. She looked around and saw Kakashi sitting in the sky as if it was normal, and he saw her and waved. Yo! Tsunade's sweat dropped at Kakashi's casual tone as if it was normal to be dead. Eventually, after Pain had completed his genocide, everyone in the village was sitting in the sky confused at what was happening. Well, this s. Hiba exclaimed loudly. A loud roar was heard in the distance as a couple of beast-like creatures lunged at some poor defenseless souls, began preying on the poor souls, eating them up as other tried to run away, only to be stopped as they reached the end of their leash. Quickly dispatch of the hollows, we need to save as many of these souls as we can. Soon the beasts were being destroyed by some people wearing black uniforms. These men were swinging at the hollows, destroying the few that came, and began to turn to the souls that remained alive and jabbing them in the head with their swords. The souls being jabbed quickly sunk into a bright light and left, only leaving a black butterfly blowing in the air. Tsunade turned to a man wearing a white haori over his black uniform and white hair, poking her in the head. Rest peacefully now. Ulki or a cipher, Naruto. Ulki or a cipher. Okay, I think that I got that down. Naruto looked at his new master. I suppose you could say, a sensei of sorts. He had unbelievably pale skin with little black lines going down from his face, what Naruto thought looked neat. But something was bugging Naruto, as anyone could tell from the look of irritation that was placed upon his face, which Ulquiorra picked up on and decided to ask about. Is something bothering you, Naruto? Yes, Ulquiorra-sama, I just was wondering why. Why did you chose me as your fraction? Your eyes. My eyes. They held in them the knowledge of what true despair really is. They expressed that, and with that I can relate somewhat. Oh. So Naruto and Ulquiorra walked down the halls till they reached a room that was empty with the walls painted white. Naruto looked inside the room with wonder and a tint of distaste, as everything in the room seemed so bland. A white bed covered in white sheets, a white desk, and guess what, some good old white curtains. This will be your sleeping quarters, Naruto. I suggest you get to sleep soon as your training begins tomorrow. Hi, Ulquiorra-sama. Naruto went fully into his room and laid down on the bed. I wonder what has happened to Konoha, what has changed. Blah, why should I care anyway? It's not like anyone missed me, besides I have new friends like Ulquiorra-sama and Aizen-sama. With those thoughts in mind, Naruto went to sleep and slept a well-deserved rest. After all, the blonde Arrancar had a very big day, becoming a Arrancar, meeting his new master and making new bonds, ones that would hopefully not break. But over in the Soul Society things were just not as peaceful as the young Arrancar's dreams. What the hell do you mean we have to go to an academy? Jiraiya looked at his friends' reactions as they found out in order to become Shinigami they had to yet again attend an academy. With a grin threatening to split his face in two, he regained the attention of his old friends. Well, you don't think they just expect you to know how to fight, do you? Fuck you, was the general reply. Cold. Naruto was feeling very cold right now. He just can't understand why. He is after all in a hot tub with ramen noodles, so why, or rather how could he be cold? Naruto's eyes cracked wide open as he felt another cold splash contact his face. He quickly realized there was a little girl with green hair, white vest, and what seemed like a good 3/4 of a helmet on her head, with one horn dumping a bucket of said cold liquid which he hoped to God was water. He blinked a couple times as his eyes drifted towards Ulquiorra. Ah, I see that you are up. Good, now we begin your training. Hi, Ulquiorra-sama. I will not be requiring your assistance any longer, Lilith. You may return to Stark-san. Naruto watched as the little girl had run off down the hallways and quickly dismissed the curiosity that he held, as he would be training with Ulquiorra-sama today and would need to get dressed appropriately and eat so he could show him just how strong he was. After completing the task of putting on his outfit, which he had changed somewhat. It was still the same basic outfit, just now it was short-sleeved, and he put on a pair of fingerless white gloves with black lining. Following Ulquiorra down the twisting and maze-like hallways, Naruto realized that they were heading down and exiting the building. Well, that was what Naruto expected them to do until they had walked into a green-haired Arrancar. She came up to the two of them along with two freshmen not unlike himself. He examined the Arrancar he had met just yesterday. She seemed normal enough, with a ram's skull on her head and red marking across her face, making it look like she was blushing at all hours of the day. What was her name? Neliel. No, Neliel to him. Odershank. No, it was Neliel to Oderschwank. Hello there, Ulquiorra-kun and Naruto-kun. She smiled as she greeted them in a friendly tone, which to Naruto was uncommon. If anything, the rest of the Espada gave the impression of yesterday. When Naruto looked at her smile, he couldn't help but blush a bit, as she was a beautiful woman to say the very least. Hello, Neliel-san. Good morning, Neliel-san. Naruto felt a little uneasy as the Tercera Espada stared at him with the utmost curiosity. So Naruto-kun, how do you like being an Arrancar? Well, I don't know, I really haven't done anything yet. Ulquiorra stood there and watched as Neliel made conversation with his fraction and couldn't help but wonder why, as Neliel was never open to someone new. Curiosity can only cure boredom for so long. Approaching the 5-minute mark of all the random questions Neliel kept asking, Ulquiorra decided that enough was enough. Come, Naruto, we will begin your training now. Bye, Naruto-kun, Ulquiorra-san. Neliel waved as she saw them leave the table and off to who knows Naruto, out to a desolate place outside of the palace. Ulquiorra faced Naruto with the look of stoicism still etched onto his face. We will begin with the basics, hand-to-hand combat. Naruto nodded and eased into a sloppy and rather fragile stance, then stared at his master for guidance on what to do next, only to receive an irritated stare in return. After what seemed to be a minute of staring, Naruto began to sweat under Ulquiorra's gaze. Naruto, is that your fighting stance? Hi, Ulquiorra-sama. Ulquiorra let out a sigh. He could tell this was going to be a long day followed by many more as he trained his fraction. I guess I will have to teach you from the beginning, won't I? Throughout the lesson Ulquiorra taught Naruto how to flow like water. This would allow Naruto to be flexible and spend the least amount of energy during a fight. This would also not restrict Naruto to using stances and teach him that sometimes the simplest moves are often the wisest to use. Ulquiorra sparred against Naruto for 3 hours and 30 minutes as it hit noon, so they would take a break from training. Naruto, I would like to know about your past. It is important for me to know and understand my subordinate. It is a long story, Ulquiorra-sama, but if it helps you I will tell it. I was born on October 10th. The same day unfortunately a demon attacked named Kyuubi. It was a beast of amazing power, but it was defeated by the 4th Hokage. A Hokage was the title of the leader of our village. You see, he sealed it into me to defeat it. Throughout my life the villagers hated me, thinking I was the reincarnation of the Kyuubi, so that happened for years till I became a ninja. Then my best friend killed me for power. In order to kill his brother he killed his clan. That's pretty much it, but I don't really dwell on it. I mean, whatever happens happens, right? That is a very interesting tale, Naruto. Naruto turned to see what kinda look that his master had on his face. To his delight it was the usual emotionless. There was one thing that Naruto hated, it was pity. Although it made Naruto wonder if Ulquiorra's face was made with permanent paint and ever changed even the slightest bit. Naruto, break time is over. It's time for the other half of your training in basics, swordsmanship. Although I would love to teach you this, I do not think you will learn as well as you would from your teacher to be. Besides, you like to socialize, do you not? Who will be teaching me? Ulquiorra-sama. Oh, you met her this morning. Naruto-kun. Ulquiorra-san. Naruto grimaced as his air supply suddenly depleted as Neliel crushed his ribcage, encasing him in a hug, burying him into her chest. A round of numerous pops were heard, followed by some cracks from Naruto's spine after a mere 5 seconds in the hug. Neliel-sama, you crushing him. He cannot learn if you kill him. Pesci pointed out. Oh right. Letting Naruto out of her death grip, he dropped onto the sand to recover. After a few moments he crawled behind Ulquiorra's legs and laid down in fear of being killed. I think you scared him, Neliel-sama. Naruto, stand up. Hi, Ulquiorra-sama. Quickly getting up onto his feet, his master took a step to the side, made a gesture with his hand to introduce him to his trainer in the sword arts. You will be learning from Neliel, as she is the most willing Espada and most proficient. Most proficient, my ass, she will probably kill me before we actually train. Okay Naruto-kun, let's start with the basics. You put 2 hands here. Nell grasped Naruto's hands and placed them on the hilt. This is the hilt. Remember, Naruto-kun, pointy end faces the enemy. Does she think I am retarded, for fuck's sake? Thus began the amazingly brutal training of Neliel to Oderschwank. Throughout the afternoon Naruto had practiced swinging his blade and where to place his hands on his sword. After practicing swinging with all types of slashes at least 100 times each, he was ready to spar to learn hands on how to parry a sword. Needless to say, Naruto ended up bloody after only an hour of sparring. Neliel swung downward, intending to obliterate any defenses he had, but was surprised to find that Naruto had blocked the downward slash and actually kept his sword in his hands to block it. Granted, it did bring him to one knee, he still blocked the attack. Neliel looked into his eyes and saw nothing but determination, the will to overcome this obstacle. Shortly after, Naruto dropped into the sand, face first, passing out due to blood loss. Neliel looked up at Ulquiorra, staring into his eyes. He has something about him. I can see why you chose him. I will call for you when we resume training. Naruto opened his eyes to stare at the ever-decorated and full of life white ceiling of his room. Turning his head, he found Lilinette about to bring in a cold bucket of water into his room while his master was in the corner watching him. He sweat dropped as he watched the girl complain about not getting to dump the freezing water, as he had waken up before she could perform the act. Come Naruto, we have training to do. 10 years later. Naruto had finally moved past his hand-to-hand combat training, as his master had said he had performed, satisfactory enough. His swordsmanship had also improved by leaps and bounds, but Naruto was still only adequate compared to the Espada, who were stronger and fiercer than ever. He also had started to develop some sort of relationship with Neliel. Sure, he thought she was beautiful and admired her looks, but they never connected on an emotional basis till one day after training with Ulquiorra, Naruto had wobbled his way over to Neliel's quarters covered in blood and bruises. She was going to a meeting with the Espada when she saw him look at her and collapse in a bloody heap. She quickly ran over and scooped him into her arms, bringing him inside her quarters, wrapping him in bandages. It was then that Naruto had awoken from his long slumber, only to find himself looking as though he was a mummy, a rather bloody mummy. That is when he had heard her humming a song he just couldn't quite ever remember hearing. This song had lured him into a daze, as all he could do is watch her. It was at this moment Naruto really had taken in her beauty, how she really looked so peaceful. It was after that day that Naruto had began to just talk with Neliel and share their thoughts upon various things, such as how they didn't want the Shinigami and Hollows to keep fighting. They had hope in Aizen to help the Shinigami realize the problem and trust him that the path he is guiding them down would be the right one. After they had become more intimate, their relationship had become something more. They were no longer friends, but rather some sort of love had blossomed from them. Sure, they could not date like they had seen and remembered humans do, but they still spent much time together, and oh how Naruto could not the night that they had made love to one another. It was one of his fondest memories. Looking at the present, Naruto was trying to master the Bala technique. Although less powerful than the Sero, the Bala is much quicker, being useful for overloading defenses and defeating enemies quicker. Fuck, this is becoming annoying. Why do I have to master this again? Naruto, it is important to master various techniques so you are not limited to a single technique to defeat an enemy. It seems you are beginning to pick up Stark's bad habits. Perhaps I should not let you see him anymore. Naruto nodded and practiced again. It just seemed pretty useless to him, but as long as his master requested it of him, he would do it. He just couldn't manage to get his Sero to increase its speed. He opened his palm like he did for his Sero and once again only managed to fire a Sero into the infinite desert that was his home of Hueco Mundo. Naruto, maybe you should try releasing it from a smaller space rather than you palm, as you would have to concentrate more on that area and not be able to put as much power in the technique. Doing as instructed, Naruto stretched out his index and ring finger and began to gather his energy as he would a Sero to the tip of his finger, and just as instructed released the power. In triumph, Naruto watched as his first Bala shot across the desert. Good, now come Naruto, we have a meeting to attend to. Naruto quietly followed Ulquiorra around as he led them to the same table Naruto was in front of 10 years ago when he had first arrived. Noticing all the seats filled this time except for the seat with a 6 marked on it. Ulquiorra sat down and Naruto stood behind him, quietly watching the events going on and stealing glances at Neliel. Naruto couldn't help but space out during the meeting, just letting his thoughts drift in his mind, capturing his attention until Aizen had said something that had caught his attention somewhat. We will be having a new Espada join us today. After making sure that he is up to skill, I would like you to welcome the new Ta Espada Grimjao Jagerjackes. Naruto got a good look of the blue-haired man, and at first he thought the man to be laid back, but looking into the man's eyes he noticed something within them. It showed Naruto that he was a rather violent and impulsive. He also noticed the need to show how strong he is. Quickly dismissing his thoughts, Naruto looked at Ulquiorra and nodded as they left to go back to his quarters. 35 years later. Much time had passed and still Naruto rose among the ranks. Not literally, though. He showed no desire to change his position, although he may have been able to take some of the lower-ranked Espada. It had been 35 years and Naruto had grown more laid back in that time, but he had seemed different as of late. He had begun to distance himself, if only but a tiny bit. It was still noticeable by Neliel and Ulquiorra. Naruto-kun, what's wrong? I am tired of it all. Tired of what? This life. All we do, Neliel-chan, is keep slaying Shinigami, and they keep slaying us. It's getting us nowhere. I know that, honey, but it seems it's the path we must walk. Neliel, I want to leave. What do you mean, Naruto? What do you mean leave? I want to just run away from this life and just go, where I won't have to deal with this war Aizen is getting himself into. Naruto, you can't just go off and mmphhh. Neliel was cut off as Naruto leaned forward and kissed her on the lips. After silencing her, Naruto placed his forehead onto hers and looked into her eyes. He still just couldn't forget how beautiful they were. Will you come with me? Naruto's question lingered in the air for what seemed like centuries as Neliel thought about what Naruto was asking of her. She would have to leave behind this life to follow the man she fell in love with. Could she just run away from it all? Should she? Of course I will, but how? I will open up a garganta to the human, and there we can finally live peacefully. Tonight meet me above Las Noches at midnight. The day had turned to night as the time approached for the young Phyrexian's planned departure. But Naruto couldn't just disappear although he wished he could. Having a plan to excuse his disappearance, Naruto went out of Hueco Mundo and had attacked a couple Soul Reaper groups over the past couple days to aggravate and irritate the Soul Society. And now he could put his plan into action as he spotted the white houri of a captain. It looked to be the 10th Division captain. It was then while the captain was distracted that Naruto pounced from the top of the trees and engaged him in combat. With instincts alone the captain dodged and looked at what attacked him only to see it running away. Deciding with a lack of good judgment and wisdom he followed the creature. Until it appeared he was in some sort of desert, he looked as the creature span back at him only for Hitsugaya to slash the creature down the chest. He watched uninterested as the creature apparently died in front of him and unknowingly in front of some witnesses in Las Noches. Aizen-sama, it appears that Ulquiorra's Frashin has died to the captain of Squad 10, sir. We have multiple reports of many Arrancar spotting the scene of an injured Naruto running from the captain only to be slain by the captain. Ah, I see, such a pity that one had talent. With Naruto. Standing up, Naruto placed a hand on his chest that had closed up. It was all going according to plan. He was going to fake his death so he could leave Las Noches in peace without being on their radar. Now all he had to do was meet up with Nel-chan at the entrance. Not one to be late, he quickly made haste to the meeting spot. With Aizen, I want you to deliver this message please, quickly too. With Neliel, she was on her way to getting to the meeting spot with Naruto-kun when she turned towards her Frashin. You guys sure you want to come? We couldn't ever leave you, Neliel-sama. Okay then, let's set off. Not so fast, you damnable woman. Neutra. With Naruto. Naruto sat there in a loss for words. Where was Neliel? He had been waiting 20 minutes and still no sign of her. Naruto couldn't waste much time anymore lest he be caught, taking one last look back at Las Noches. One lone tear made its way down his cheek as he turned towards the Garganta and entered it walking slowly and full of thought. Nel-chan, why? It had been 2 weeks since he arrived in the human world and Naruto was quite bored. Naruto had drastically changed since Nel had not come with him here, leaving him all alone. He had become even more laid back and sarcastic. I guess I will go take a look around town. Naruto started walking around the town slightly hunched over with his hands in his pockets and watched as people walked or ran by without even glancing at him. It's not that they didn't notice him that bothered him, I mean they couldn't, it's just that he was alone with no one, not even his Nel-chan. What was he going to do now? All he did was train, and even that became boring after a while. Please something cure my boredom, anything, I need something. How about me? Naruto whipped his head around only to receive a roundhouse to the face and be sent flying into a nearby building. Standing up groggily, Naruto turned to see his opponent and he was shocked to see a purple-haired beauty in a fighting stance. That's about all Naruto got to see till she shunpoed out of existence. Naruto edged his head to the side to dodge a fierce punch from said purple-haired beauty. Now I know that I said I was bored, but that didn't mean I wanted to fight. You're different from most hollows I have fought, I mean you dodged my punch. Maybe if you didn't assume I was a hollow you would notice the lack of a mask, well, most of the mask. True to his word, the hollow only had parts of a mask on his face. Yoruichi had never seen something such as this, a hollow with a broken mask. He had to be a hollow, didn't he? Otherwise her alarm wouldn't have gone off. So what are you? Me? Well, it's only polite you introduce yourself first, is it not? HMPH, fine, my name is Yoruichi Shihoin and you are? Well, I don't feel obliged to answer that. Yoruichi's face grew a rather large tick mark at that comment and her face turned red from anger, but instead of attacking the unknown being she chose to question him further. And why exactly don't you feel obliged? Well, you attacked me and I think you hurt my feelings. She looked at her opponent who had a rather bored expression on his face and she just couldn't help but feel anger rise from inside of her at his answers. He did look rather good in her opinion, though he had lean and lanky look but not overly so, and was not overly muscled but still had them. Yoruichi felt a blush of embarrassment appear on her face as she realized she was sizing up her opponent a little more than she should. He cannot be serious, can he? What kinda answer is, you hurt my feelings, you're a hollow, for fuck's sake, what feelings are you talking about? You kill souls out of hunger. Now that is stereotyping. Just because I once was a hollow doesn't mean I fed on souls for hunger and do not feel. I happen to have many feelings, thank you very much. Wait, what exactly do you mean once a hollow? If you are not one now, then what exactly are you? If I wouldn't give you my name, why exactly would I tell you that? Now go and leave me alone. Hold on there, friend. My name is Kazuki Urahara and I would like to discuss something's over with you over some food perhaps. Naruto turned his head upward to see a man wearing some hat and clogs staring at him with a goofy grin on his face holding what appeared to be a cane. His lazy gazed over the man and assessed him, deciding that he was powerful and a fight would be a difficult thing to walk away from, let alone win. That idiot, did he not just watch my battle? I guess after all it is free food. While it's not high quality, it's still decent. Well, they say hunger is the best spice. With that, Naruto jammed his hands in his pockets and started walking along with Kazuki towards the Urahara shop. Yoruichi stood by with his mouth wide open on how the stranger accepted Kazuki's offer and yet blatantly refused to answer her questions. Oh, how this man infuriated her, yet something was different about this man, something she couldn't place her finger on. At the shop, the group of three sat down on the comfy pillows that surrounded the average brown wooden table. The table had an array of foods on it ranging from sandwiches to teriyaki stew. Picking up some of the meals that looked rather edible, Naruto began to taste the food and enjoy his meal, or rather he would have if the purple-haired beauty wasn't staring him down. It's rude to stare, Yoruichi. It's rude to ignore me for Kazuki. Speaking of me, I would love to know your name. Naruto Uzumaki. Thank you, Naruto. Now you said something about being once a hollow, care to explain? And so Naruto explained what he was to them, but he did not share his past with them. After all, they were strangers that could see him. Time skip. It was after that story that the wheels of time turned by rather fast as the three grew into a team of sorts. Not the type of team that functioned perfectly, but the type of team that didn't connect but still got the job done, whether that job was delivering products or getting some quick money. Either way, Naruto had to pull his weight so he could keep his Gigai. Naruto's Gigai actually very important to him, for it allowed him to interact with the living and feel not so alone. That and it introduced him to the wonder of cigarettes and how they helped relieve his stress. His Gigai looked the same as he would if he did not have pieces of his mask stuck at his face. That and he wore normal clothing, being a white long-sleeved collared shirt with the collar turned up and sleeves rolled up and shirt untucked, black tie loosely around his neck, and semi-tight black pants. Not like tight jeans, not skin tight but not baggy either, like Ichigo's school uniform type of pants, but little skinnier and are black. Fuck, this is a bit much to explain something. And a pair of leather black shoes that were not pointed but rounded at the toe area, and he would carry a pack of cigarettes in the front pocket on his chest. Walking through the front door, Naruto made his way over to Kazuki to do some odd task Kazuki had in store for him. In his usual posture, slightly slouched, cigarette in the mouth and hands in his pockets, Naruto finally reached Kazuki. You know, you really should read. Kazuki looked at Naruto with one hand holding a fan in front of his face, the other pointing behind Naruto. Naruto looked behind him to notice a rules sign stating some rules while in the store, and he finally noticed what Kazuki was getting at rule number 8, no smoking. Turning his head, Naruto gave Kazuki a blank stare and continued to stare for a good while till Naruto took another drag on his cigarette. Okay. Well, your next job is actually a favor called in by an old friend. He wants his son watched in his school as he is acting strange lately and thinks his son may have spiritual awareness. What exactly am I supposed to do? Well, you're gonna be the new transfer student. There is no way I can get out of this, is there? Nope. Now you better make your way to school. And remember, he has orange hair. Sighing, Naruto walked out of the shop, threw his cigarette at the ground and stomped it out. He began walking down the streets of Karakura town for what seemed like 10 minutes until he stopped in the middle of the street. Where the hell is that school anyway? At the school. The teacher was going over some math problems on the board while holding a book in one hand and a ruler in the other until she was interrupted by a knocking at the door. Walking over to the door, she opened it, and standing in the middle of the doorway was a student with blonde hair in a very lazy posture looking at the teacher. How can I help you, young man? I am the new student. I thought you were supposed to arrive before class began. Well, I got lost on the road of life. I was lucky to make here with all the obstacles it threw at me. Very well, introduce yourself. Turning to face the class, Naruto glanced around the room, memorizing all the faces and spotting out the kid he was supposed to look out for. It wasn't really that hard considering he was the only male kid with orange hair. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. My likes training, cigarettes, my dislikes women with attitudes, my dreams for the future to settle an old score. The class stared at the new kid in wonder as he walked over to the desk he was assigned to. He was placed right behind a girl named Tatsuki who immediately turned around with curiosity on her face. You said you like training, right? Naruto nodded. What do you train in? Fighting. Really, now that's great, we are going to have a spar during lunch. Hey, now don't I get a choice in this? Poor Naruto had no idea what just happened, and all that became of it was him having to fight a girl who just happened to be into fighting. Cursing his luck, he stared in boredom as the teacher resumed the class and quickly fell asleep in his desk. Hey, get up. Naruto looked up as the black-haired fight enthusiast shook him awake. Rubbing the sands out of his eyes, he faced the girl with a confused stare only to receive a glare in return. What kind of fighter are you if you fall asleep and act all lazy? Now come on and let's go spar. I really don't want to. With that, the class watched as the new kid walked out of the room, leaving a stunned and angry Tatsuki behind. Tatsuki's friends knew that this would not end well for the new kid and peered out into the hall as she ran at the new kid with her fist back ready to break any bone that it would hit. They thought that the new kid would be leaving the school in an ambulance until he suddenly moved to the side and held his foot out, tripping Tatsuki and forcing her to land in the hallway face first. She then began to laugh, and that confused her friends even more as they had never heard her laugh at being knocked down on the ground, especially face first. So you really can fight, can't you? I never said I couldn't, just said that I didn't want to. Hopping to her feet, Tatsuki rushed at him from the front and her fist back. Let's see you get out of this one. She let loose a precise and powerful swing right at Naruto's mug and thought that his jaw would break until she found herself flipping through the air and landing on her back. She looked up at the smirking figure of the new kid and wondered how he managed to pull such a feat off. How? You're tense. I am calm. You apply brute force. I control that force through fluid motion. With that being said, Naruto walked off have his lunch. Once reaching a peaceful spot, he found a nice spot next to the fence and sat down, leaned back and opened his bento only to find a note saying, "If you're reading this, that means you really thought I packed you a lunch." Sighing, Naruto reached in his front pocket, pulled out a cigarette from his pack, took out his lighter and lit it. Ichigo and his friends were all discussing the fight that had just happened. It was really big talk around the school since Tatsuki was known from being a rather frightening person to fight no matter who you were, and for her to lose to the new kid was rather shocking. Did you see it? That new kid beat Tatsuki. I heard he was trained by a secret criminal organization. Oh god, he is probably hunting me down to hurt me. Keigo, why would he hunt you down? Mizuhiro, it's obvious that since all the girls are falling for me, the mob wants me dead. Geez, don't you pay attention? I am so sure that that has to be the reason they would want you dead. Glad to see you agree. Now off to lunch. Sprinting up the stairs and through the roof door, Keigo ran as fast as he could, only to trip over something and smash his face into the fence, then slide down till he was lying face down on the ground. Who would dare trip me? Turning around Keigo to meet the stare of the previous topic of their conversation, Naruto Uzumaki, the new kid. To say Keigo was frightened would be the least to say he was outright a butt to piss himself looking at the smoking blonde. Yo, hi there buddy, you didn't take that as a threat. Hey guys, I think we should eat somewhere else. Ichigo didn't seem to like that idea. You don't mind if we eat up here, do you? Nope. And so the lunch went on in an awkward silence as Keigo was eating, if you could call his face stuffing eating, but each of the group refused to speak a word as they were all too deep in their own thoughts to notice the calming silence. To Naruto the silence was wonderful, as he had his back against the fence, hands behind his head and feet outstretched in front of him. Taking a drag, Naruto thought of what else he could be doing rather than watching some kid. Hey Naruto, right, wanna come eat with us? Ichigo, what are you doing? He will kill me. Ichigo ignored the pleas and cries of Keigo and waited for the response of the new kid. Ichigo wanted to learn more about this Naruto since he had easily defeated Tatsuki, who was by far no pushover. I do not have something to eat. We have some extras we can share. Come on Ichigo, he might actually accept. Don't you care about me? Sure, I guess. Naruto casually picked himself up and walked over to the group consisting of Keigo, Mizuhiro, Ichigo, Chad, and Rukia. He noticed that the one known as Keigo was frightened of him, but the rest seemed very calm. One other thing caught his eye, it was that the girl didn't know how to use a juice box and that she had Ichigo do it for her. Now what kind of person doesn't know how to use something that simple? Taking some of a sandwich that was handed to him by the orange-haired boy, Naruto chomped down on it and looked around as some of the group seemed a little tense. He couldn't imagine why. It's not like he stood out or did anything special to gain this unwanted attention, did he? I did have a scrap with that girl, but that certainly couldn't have mustered up that much, could it? So why are you all so tense? Why so tense? Why, you beat Tatsuki Who as like the best fighter in the school. Naruto certainly did not need to hear that. He did not want any sort of reputation in this school. That was the last thing that he needed. Naruto was about to speak up until he sensed a Hollow's presence. The girl named Rukia had her cell phone go off at that time, and he noticed Ichigo tense up. Ichigo, can I go talk to you in private? Sure, Rukia. With that being said, the two left the roof and off to who knows where, but Naruto noticed the orange-haired kid running across the rooftops in some Shinigami garb along with that girl. So he is a substitute Shinigami. I guess I have to chase them. After this sandwich, don't want it to go to waste. Naruto looked down at his sandwich and took a few bites out to finish it and stood up facing the group. Thanks for the meal, but I got to go. Walking away from the group and down the stairs, Naruto began his pursuit of them after dropping his body off on top of the Urahara shop, as he didn't really trust Gigai, considering that they usually did not fit the personality exactly. After catching up to the group, Naruto watched as Ichigo was attacked by the Hollow. He seemed to be relying on pure instinct to fight and had no skill whatsoever. Well, better go tell Kazuki about this. Naruto returned to the shop to tell Kazuki the news. Walking through the front door, Naruto found Kazuki and Yoruichi sitting at the table about to have a meal when he walked in. Yo, so what did you find out? He is a substitute Shinigami. I already knew that. Now what else? You already knew that. Then why did you make me tail the kid? To give you some exercise. Oh yeah, that reminds me. Naruto reached behind him and threw the empty bento at Kazuki's head, knocking him down upon the impact. Sighing, Naruto sat down and took a rest before he had to head back to attend the rest of the school day. Well, his rest would have been peaceful if not for the added weight that had just appeared on his lap. He opened his eyes to be greeted by the ever-lovely Yoruichi. Would you like to explain why you are on my lap? No, but I can tell you like it, don't you? Yoruichi gave a smirk and shook her ass for added effect. Naruto groaned and got up, much to the disappointment of Yoruichi, walking out of the shop with a newly plucked cigarette from his packet already lit. He walked down the street and returned to the school just before the lunch break was over and made his way slowly back to his desk. He could only sigh as he noticed Tatsuki's stare and grin. That grin did not promise him a good future in the school. It was one only two people wore. A woman with an evil plot or a serial killer. Naruto was hoping for the latter, as a woman with an evil plot was more than likely going to cause him more of a hassle. Naruto fell asleep easily within the first 10 minutes of the teacher's lesson, as he did not deem it necessary to learn. He awoke once again to the dark-haired fighting enthusiast who still had a grin on her face. Hey Naruto, you are going to spar with me? I really do not want to. I wasn't asking for your opinion. After that, Tatsuki proceeded to drag him out of the building and over to the dojo she trained at. Dropping him by the one hand she used to carry him over here with, was forced to use both her hands to make him stand up. After completing that task, she dropped into a fighting stance and prepared for battle, shredding her usual outfit for her martial artist garb. The hell, how to hide pants under a skirt? It just doesn't make sense. Naruto had no time to think as he dodged a punch thrown at his jaw. Then he was forced to move backwards to avoid a leg sweep. Tatsuki's grinned as the battle continued. What more could she want in a sparring partner? Her grin grew wider as he continued to dodge and weave out of every attack she launched. All he kept doing was dodging, and eventually he outlasted Tatsuki as he knew she was exhausted as she fell to her knees in sweat. Why can you avoid all of my attacks? I told you you're too tense, you need to be fluid like water. I think I get it. Picking her up, he helped her gather her bag and walked with her outside of the dojo. As they walked in silence, each absorbed in their own thoughts, they heard the faint patter of footsteps. Tatsuki turned around to see a guy with a knife charging at her. Her body froze in shock at what could happen to her. Flashes of herself being flung over by Naruto flashed throughout her head, and her body acted on instinct as she grabbed the man by the knife hand and flung him on the ground. After on the ground she beat the crap out of him, but in that one instant she was fluid. Did you see I was fluid like water? Naruto nodded and gave her a thumbs up and continued the water and left her with a wave as they parted ways. With a small smile on his face, Naruto returned to the Urahara shop only to be greeted by a scowling Yoruichi in the corner with her hands on her hips. Naruto sighed and pulled out another cigarette as he knew he was gonna need it. Having fun, weren't you? Somebody sounds jealous. Jealous, ya right. Naruto's smirk just added to the aggravation she was feeling right now. Whatever, it's not like I care what you do with whom you do it with. That's good to know. Now if you will excuse me. Naruto walked past the shocked Yoruichi who had her jaw on the floor and made his way to table for dinner with his so-called Teen Urahara, as dubbed by Kazuki himself. Sitting down he looked at Kazuki and then at the food at the table and then at Kazuki again. He placed some food on his plate and munched down on it. This food is still crappy. Glad to see your day was good. What did you mean by that? Whatever did you mean, Yoruichi? You know what I mean. You said that's good to know. I was agreeing with you and glad you gave the knowledge of your opinion. Oh, I am on to you, mister. Naruto finished his meal and went into his room, then plopped down onto his bed after ridding himself of his clothing save his boxers. Yawning, Naruto woke up to stare into a pair of golden eyes. He sighed and turned over, trying his best to ignore her. This only enraged Yoruichi. She violently slammed her foot into his back, smashing him against the wall. Oh, there's been a time skip since last chapter. The group consisting of Ichigo, Orihime, Oryu, Chad, and Yoruichi stood in front of Kazuki as he showed off his invention to the group and told of how it will get them to the Soul Society. After giving a basic layout of the plan to actually make it into the Soul Society, Kazuki called for Tessai to help him open the gateway. Okay, when we open this, the 6 of you will have to hurry through to other side as quick as possible, okay? No one can turn back once you are in or you will die, got it? Hold on, there are only 5 of us if you're including Yoruichi. Ah, you're quick on the draw, Ryu, but my teammate of sorts will also be accompanying you. And who is that? That would be me. You. Pointing fingers at someone is rude, you know. Naruto was casually walking in his normal attire, tie and all, from the ladder leading down into Kazuki's secret training facility. The only thing the group found different were the reminiscent mask fragments from his old hollow mask under his eyes and across his forehead, along with the fox-like ears. He walked till he too was in front of Kazuki. Yoruichi quickly jumped onto his shoulder and he stared at Kazuki. Do I have to bring her? Yes you do. What do you mean have to? You should be honored to be in the presence of me. Whatever you say. Hey, Naruto has fox ears. You just noticed that. Chad could only sigh at his friend. You sure are a bright girl, ain't cha? Naruto turned away from the orange-headed, big-breasted girl and back to Kazuki. It ready. Okay, once we open this you guys quickly go inside. You will only have a 4-minute window of opportunity to get though, which is a little shaky. The group stood silently waiting for the portal to open, each anxious as to when the portal would open, but each determined to get to the other side to save their former classmate Rukia. Suddenly inside the square-shaped device a portal opened up and each ran into the portal, letting Naruto take the lead with Yoruichi on his shoulders. Okay, there's no turning back from here, only way to go is forward. Yoruichi began barking out orders as they ran through the purple oozing tunnel. Geez, you're so bossy, Yoruichi. I am not. Besides, it's not like you wanna explain things now, do you? Naruto shook his head. I thought so. Wah. Idiot. Ichigo reached for his Zanpakuto and was ready to swing it when he was stopped by Yoruichi. Stop, if you swing the Zanpakuto the walls will consume you too. Ryu struggled as the purple muck-like substance grabbed onto his fashionable cape and tugged to consume him whole, and it would have if not for Chad grabbing Ryu and ripping the cape from his back. Thank you, Chad. Huh. Chad quickly hefted up Ryu onto his shoulders and the group continued to run throughout the portal. While they were running, Ryu kept asking Chad to put him down, yet Chad ignored him and his whines that he was fine. After a little bit of accepting that he would not be let down, Ryu actually took a good look at what was behind them and noticed something approaching them at fast speeds. Hey guys, something's coming. Then a bright light erupted from the purple walls and with a black train-like body emerged, chasing towards the group and gaining. Yoruichi, what the hell is that thing? It's the capturing thrust. Sounds UAL, doesn't it? Naruto, I would love to flirt with you, but we need to run now. The group sprinted as fast as they could and could see the light at the end of the tunnel, yet the capturing thrust still was gaining on them and was showing no signs of stopping. We're fucked, aren't we? We can't outrun it. Just as the thrust was going to penetrate their bodies and shred through them, Orihime turned around and placed her hands on her hair clips. Hanagaku, Bagan, Lily. Sacred tri-linked shield. I reject. After saying her chant to use her powers, the so-called hair clips flew off of her head and formed an orange triangular shield which placed itself in front of the train, effectively stopping it for brief moments before it exploded and launched the group forward through the opening into the Soul Society. Inside the Rukongai, it looked like a normal day until a square portal opened up in the middle of the sky and outshot a group of people from who knows where. A dust cloud was brought up as the people landed rather harshly on the ground. OWW. This cannot be good. The group looked over to Naruto, who was holding up his now crushed pack of cigarettes while holding a bent one from the pack. Some might not have made it and you're worried about your cigarettes. Yeah, pretty much. This isn't what I had in mind. I did not think I would have to use my spare cape so early in our trip. You sure you're not into men? For the last time, I'm not gay. That's what you say now, but I'll tell ya, back when I was alive I knew this really effeminate man and then he died, but that's not the point. He may be up here, I can introduce you to and you can hit it off. Naruto, enough teasing. You are not known to be a party pooper, so where exactly are we going in such a hurry? Naruto glanced up to Yoruichi as he lit his bent cigarette, then looked at the group he was supposed to be watching over and couldn't help but sigh. They were mindlessly arguing about something that he probably did not want to know. Hey Yoruichi, why is that place so different from the town we are in now? Looking at where Ichigo was pointing, they noticed that the wall and color scheme over said place was far different and seemed more refined than the so-called town that they were standing in now. Well, that is the kid, that is where the Soul Reapers are living, the court of pure souls. Alright then, let's go. You idiots. OWWWWW. Both Ichigo and Naruto tended to their newly acquired scratch-marked faces as Yoruichi landed in front of them with her claws protruding. Luckily for Naruto, his cigarette did not suffer the same fate as his face did. What the hell, Yoruichi, what did I do? You interrupted me, HMPH. Damn cat probably is having her cat period. Naruto continued to grumble to himself only to realize the glare he was receiving from the cat that he was grumbling about. Quickly formulating a plan to get out of the current bad situation he was in, he dug up a tunnel to freedom as he pointed forward. Kid gone. You idiot, you will die. Huh. Ichigo was quickly answered as the Soul Society's gate fell just centimeters short of him, crashing into the ground, causing a shock wave to flow throughout the surrounding ground, also causing bits of debris to shoot out away from the location of where the gate hit. The group looked at Ichigo with mixed feelings, some being concern, others shock, and another with amusement. Ichigo himself was coughing his lungs out as some debris and dust were stuck in his throat. After clearing said debris, he looked up at what had stopped him in place and couldn't help but awe in surprise at the massive size of the gate. I didn't that I would have visitors for at least 1,000 more years. Appearing from the massive dust cloud came a massive man wearing a red cap you would normally see on a dancing monkey. The massive man also wore a Soul Reaper uniform along with a ponytail and some sort of armor on his left arm, wielding an equally massive axe. Now boy, I am Jidanbu the gatekeeper. You may come at me any way you wish to try to defeat me to get past this gate. Though the others did not hear what Jidanbu said, they could not help but gawk at the man's massive size. Who is that? Ishida turned to Naruto for help. Naruto looked at the kid with a blank stare. You're being kinda rude staring at me. I'm flattered you may find me attractive, but I am not into men. Why you? That is Jidanbu, who was chosen by the Soul Society to guard this gate. It was Yoruichi who interrupted Ryu this time before he would go into a fit of how he was not gay and get into an argument and just waste time. Focusing the attention of the group back onto the important matter getting past Jidanbu, Yoruichi formulated a plan and was going to explain into big detail till Ichigo spoke up. I will handle him. You idiot, you're gonna get yourself killed. Kurosaki-kun, we will help you. Answering to the girl's cry, Jidanbu slammed his axe down and slid it across the ground, raising a wall of concrete to halt them from reaching Ichigo. After creating the wall, Jidanbu proceeded to tell the group of the rules of the Soul Society, being to wash your hands, don't eat food off the floor, and duels are 1 versus 1. Guys, don't worry, just leave this to me. Ichigo turned back to Jidanbu, who stood there waiting patiently for him to stop talking and begin trying to defeat him. Are you done? I didn't ask you to wait. Wrong answer, you should say thank you. Jidanbu raised his axe and brought it down upon Ichigo, raising debris and dust once again. Once it cleared, it revealed Ichigo holding Zangetsu to parry the axe, and to the surprise of Jidanbu he was holding his sword with one hand. Jidanbu looked at Ichigo and grinned as his prey survived his first strike. Very good, I can't believe you survived my first attack, including you. 3 people have survived my first strike but none survived my second. Swing his axe at Ichigo. He was stunned to be met with the same result as just a few moments before. Jidanbu's eyes widened in surprise to what was not thought humanly possible. Very impressive indeed. I guess you'll be the first to face the Tenjiden Hit Festival. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 7. Quattro. And now the finisher 10. Jidanbu swung his axe numerous times at Ichigo, shattering the ground below himself and his opponent with nothing but brute force. With all the force he could muster, his final swing was swung horizontally, destroying the wall he made in the process, once again making a big cloud of dust appear. For the third time today, Jidanbu could say he was surprised. No, he was shocked so much that it gave him a very cold chill up his spine. This boy that had challenged him had blocked every attack he had thrown at him. But he had an ace up his sleeve as Jidanbu pulled out his second axe and proceeded to gloat on how he would wipe the floor with the orange-headed kid. Sorry buddy, but I have to break those axes. Jidanbu laughed and brought down both his axes, but was suddenly tossed back with his axing shattering as Ichigo slashed at the former axes with his sword. Jidanbu stared at the orange-headed substitute Soul Reaper with eyes wide open and proceeded to laugh. My, I haven't slipped on my ass in ages. You got lucky I slipped. Now I will just kill you with my. Jidanbu stared in shock at the hilts of his axes clearly broken and missing the actual sharp blade of the axe. His eyes scrunched up and his bottom lip jetted out with water forming at the edges of his eyes. Hey buddy, sorry about your axes, but say something, it's kinda uncomfortable. They're broken. The group couldn't help but sweat drop as the massive man kept repeating that sentence, slamming both hands on the ground before them, sniveling like a newborn who had lost his toys. After a little bit, the huge gatekeeper hefted himself up and rubbed his eyes free of any more tears. Look at me crying. Truly you are worthy of passing this gate, as you showed concern for me, your enemy. For having defeated me, I will open the gate. Please stand back. The gatekeeper turned around and bent over to get a firm grip on the bottom of the gate and lifted it with all his might. Struggling at first, since it had been quite some time since the gate was last lifted, the rest of the lift was quite easy, but what lay on the other side scared him to no end as he stared into the slits of the eyes of one Captain Ichimaru Jin, who had his trademark grin on his face. Now what exactly are you doing, Jidanbu? These intruders defeated me, so I had to lift the gate open. A gatekeeper does not open the gate no matter what, even if it costs him his life. In a flash, a massive gash appeared on the formerly armored arm of Jidanbu, causing him to let go of the gate with his left arm, forcing him to hold the gate up with his right arm and his shoulders, an impressive feat despite the situation. It is time for you to pay such a cost. The gatekeeper's body froze up in fright of losing his life within the few seconds to pass. Well, that was until Ichigo charged forward with Zangetsu and made an attempt to end Jin's life, who parried the attack with ease. Leaping back, Ichigo pointed his Zanpakuto at Jin and prepared his question. What the hell do you think you're doing, killing one of your own, ya fox-faced? Hey, Ichigo, what are you doing? We have to retreat. HMPH, what a weird kid. What do you mean retreat, you damned cat? I can fight this guy. Ichimaru began walking away from the group and held his Zanpakuto out with his arm fully stretched horizontally. Why you so far away? You gonna throw the thing? It isn't a thing, it's my Zanpakuto. Shoot him dead, Shinso. Suddenly the small wakizashi-sized blade lengthened itself, extending towards Ichigo, who out of instinct put Zangetsu in some sort of defense, which worked sorta. It did block the blade from killing Ichigo, but the blade still launched Ichigo into Jidanbu, who both were tossed back far away. While in shock, the group forgot to notice that without Jidanbu holding the gate it would fall, and when they did it was too late. Ichigo, Kurosaki-kun, shit the gate, bye-bye. That last view in the Court of Pure Souls the group saw was Jin bending over, waving at them with his trademark grin plastered all over his face before the gate slammed against the ground, closing once again. Inoue ran over to Ichigo to make sure that he wasn't injured. Upon arriving to him she discovered that he had received nothing but a bump on the noggin. Good, you're alright. Sorry guys, because of me the gate's closed. Hey, at least you ain't dead, kid. Say Orihime, can you heal Jidanbu? Yes. As Orihime was turning around she noticed that the once desolate town was now being filled with the life of souls. Many people poured out of the houses that were once thought empty by the ryoka. One peculiar man came out from the crowd dressed in yellow and purple with hair white as snow with wrinkles on his face showing his age. We saw what happened, and as Jidanbu's saviors we would like to welcome you. Ah, excuse my rudeness, I am the leader of the Rukongai. The crowd of people gathered around Jidanbu as Orihime inspected the gash on his left arm. The crowd gossiped of the new people in the Rukongai and rumors were quickly spread around, most of them good. After getting a good view of the gash, Orihime announced to the crowd that she could heal him. Shuno. Ayame. Sacred dual return shield, I reject. Shortly after this announcement 2 pieces of hair clip launched into the sky, forming an oval barrier that floated down onto Jidanbu's arm. Inside the oval barrier people could see the wound beginning to disappear as if it had never happened in the first place. While the wound was still healing, a little boy started pushing his way through the crowd until he was in the presence of the strangers. Mister, it's me, Shibata. Shibata. Chad cast his eyes of the little boy that he had known as a teal, and how different he looked. He was once a small bird with white feathers, now he was a small boy in rags and brown hair. I'll take that as I can go and sleep for a bit. Walking away from the group, Naruto left to go find somewhere to rest and most likely take a smoking break. The rest of the group also decided to take a look around as Chad had left with the little boy on his shoulders. After what seemed like hours, Naruto decided to wake up and stop dreaming about his past as he opened his eyes only to be greeted by some girls who were giggling and then ran away as he sat up. Naruto sighed as he made sure he had no hay on his outfit or in his hair. As he got out of the hay pile he decided to sleep on. Walking a bit he ran into Chad, who still had boy on his shoulders. Is this your friend, mister? I guess you can say that. Hey, isn't that your Shinigami friend? Yeah, it is. It was around this time the group met up with Yoruichi inside the leader of the Rukongai's house with a fire burning under a pot. A basic map was on the ground having a circle with some squares on it representing each one of the gates that led into the Court of Pure Souls. So if we ain't going through the gate, how exactly, Naruto takes a drag, are we going into the Court of Pure Souls? Sir, could you please not smoke in my house? The leader was only greeted with a blank stare. Since the gate did not work, the Soul Society will probably strengthen the defenses all around the other's gate and the one gate we breached. We are not giving up, but we will use a different method to get ourselves into the Soul Society. Elder Dono, do you know where Kūkaku Shiba currently resides? You can't be thinking of doing that, can you? Yes. Yoruichi gave the elder a confident stare to break him down. The elder started to sweat under the stare of the intimidating cat. Eventually he cracked under the intense pressure of the small cat and revealed the location of her, or rather he would have if not for some man flying through the door crash landing in front of the group. The man was dressed in white with a block jacked over it and a polka-dotted bandana on his head, all while wearing sunglasses. He was followed by a rather large boar with a pretty red bow tied around it. Bonnie-chan threw me off again. Why is there a boar? The man dusted himself off and took a good look around the room. Hey there, old man. Ganju. Geez, what kinda greeting is that? Why is there a fucking Shinigami here? Ganju, listen, he is not a bad Shinigami. A Shinigami is a Shinigami, there is no good or bad. Ganju out of the blue appeared face to face with Ichigo, his hand on Ichigo's cheek, and proceeded to insult him until he was sent flying to the entrance of the room courtesy of Ichigo's fist. Ganju responded by tackling Ichigo out of the house and into the open street, where the two leapt back and gave each other a distance. Ishida and Orihime tried to reach Ichigo but were stopped by some goons wearing funny clothing and riding boars. Chad soon ran out of the house with Zangetsu in hand and launched it like a javelin over towards Ichigo, who caught it with ease. Thank you, Chad. Ichigo, you idiot, don't waste your Just let him do his thing, Yoruichi. You, oh my, bastard. Yoruichi was being easily distracted as Naruto rubbed his hand at the base of her spine, causing her to feel a sensation of pleasure and raise her ass into the air as he further petted her. Once she was out of the picture, Ichigo received a thumbs up from Naruto and fought against Ganju, who was easily outmatched. No matter what punch of kick he came up with, Ichigo would easily dodge and counter-attack at the same time. The little scrap went on for some time until the sound of a clock ringing went off. The noise originated from a rather large clock on the back of one of the goons, who wore a look of dread upon his face. "What time is it? It's already 9, bro. 9 oh fuck. Bonnie." The pretty boar with a red bow jumped over Ichigo and grabbed the large man onto her back and took off down the streets, followed by the other boars with goons on top of them. Ganju and Ichigo once again had a screaming match off till Ganju had disappeared from screaming distance with his pack of Shinigami haters and followers of the boar. The next morning, really early, like a time I would hate to be up early, around like 6 or maybe 5, I done know. Will Jidanbu be okay, Ishida-kun? Yes, big people like him often sleep more after a battle. Although I wonder what this Kūkaku Shiba person will be like. Maybe he's an American short hair with a pedigree or a Dalmatian. Just cause he is a friend of Yoruichi does not mean he is a cat, and besides, Dalmatians are dogs. He sounds like a muscular samurai warlord. No, I think he is a hermit mystic master type. I got it. Inoue scrunched down and began to scribble in the dirt with her finger, using all of her artistic ability to draw an accurate description of what Kūkaku Shiba would look like, using what Chad and Ishida gave her as clues. The picture came out very well indeed, appearing to be a very muscular bald wizard with the tail and ears of a cat. He needs a cape, Inoue-san. Okay, whatever you say, Captain Homo. Naruto, I'm not gay. Whatever you say. I'm not judging you. I'm just making speculations that influence my opinion about you by noticing your preferences. Enough teasing, we will be off to see Kukaku. Come on, Ichigo. I'm not going. The fuck do you mean you're not going? I can't have that fat from yesterday thinking I'm a coward. I'll go get him, Yoruichi. Thank you, Ishida. A few minutes later they could hear the protests of Ichigo and the struggle and groans coming from the house. Yoruichi looked up at Naruto, who looked at her, and she gave him a stare that said, "I done wanna do it," and Naruto gave her a stare back that said, "Fuck you." Sounds like they're having, nay, Naruto. Naruto walked into the house to be greeted to the sight of Ishida pulling on Kurosaki's pants to try to get him outside. Now Naruto had many thoughts going through his head at this time, most of the bad. They were terrible thoughts that he didn't want to think about but couldn't get his mind off. I am all for you having gay relations, Ishida, but rape is a little far, don't ya think? Ishida immediately dropped Ichigo's pant leg and began to sputter of nonsense and blush profusely. Taking Ichigo's laughing as an advantage, Yoruichi clawed Ichigo's face, leaving 3 bloody lines on his face. Naruto quickly scooped up Ichigo and carried him out on his shoulder. Maybe you're forgetting, but we're not here to fight a stupid battle, we are here to rescue Rukia and Orihime. You can carry this. Ichigo took Naruto's words to heart as he had a look of contemplation on his face until he realized the last words that Naruto had said and felt the wind pass his face as he was thrown like a doll face first into Orihime's cleavage. The girl's face turned redder than a cherry and stared down at Ichigo, who still had his face in her cleavage, and drooled slightly before dropping him. "Kurosaki-kun, sorry. Let's get going already." The group set out across the land of the Soul Society, and nothing but the breeze and complaints were in the air. After answering some questions and stating that the house was instantly recognizable, the group walked up a hill till Yoruichi stopped and stared. She addressed to the group that the house was just a few yards away. "Well, that is interesting. That's so cool. No wonder she lives out here. They probably won't let her live in town with houses like that. That has to be the reason." Those were the replies by the group as they gazed at the house that had a rather large chimney and a set of arms that held a red banner saying Kūkaku Shiba. The house was unique to say the least, and after gather some confidence and swallowing any worries they had, the group walked towards the entrance, only to be greeted by 2 muscular-looking men wearing similar outfits. "Halt, who are you? I see one of you is a Shinigami. I, Koganehiko, and I, Shiroganehiko, shall not let you pass." More gatekeepers. The pair of twins stared down the group until they noticed a cat pop out from behind Ichigo's pant leg and a rather lean-looking man with a cigarette in his mouth appear from behind Chad. Both of their eyes popped out with shock, and both were quick to yell out the names of the two. "Yoruichi Dono, Naruto Dono." The twins apologized to the group and led them down a staircase that led to the main rooms of the complex. Koganehiko led the group to a traditional door and he bowed before announcing to Kukaku that guests were here to greet her. The door slid open to reveal a woman with a fake arm and a rather large bust and beautiful black hair sitting down staring down at the cat. Yo, good to see you Yuru. Ichi. Naruto. Kukaku is a woman. I never said she was a man. Looks were flying all around the room. Kukaku was sending a questioning stare Yoruichi's way and a reminiscent look at Naruto as she seemed to zone out into a past memory. Orihime, Chad, and Ishida were trying to come to terms of the fact that the cat mystic samurai was actually a woman with a rather pleasing-looking body despite having only one arm. Kukaku, the reason we have come here is actually to ask a favor. You seem to come here for favors a lot Yoruichi. So tell me, is it complicated? Very. I would like to have some conditions though. Very well, what would they be? Kukaku motioned for Yoruichi to come over and when the black cat was close enough Kukaku leaned over and whispered into Yoruichi's ear to which the cat responded by twitching and rapidly forming tick marks appearing all over. Yoruichi's fur stood up and she began to twitch even more uncontrollably. Absolutely not. I cannot agree to that. Fine, I guess you don't want to get into the Soul Society. Grr. Fine. Naruto suddenly had a feeling over dread wash over him and send a terribly cold chill down his spine. He was getting very bad vibes from the future to come and wished for the best to happen. Kukaku walked over to the door and started mentioning one of her men to watch over the kids since she did not fully trust them yet. Be polite you idiot or I will kill you. She opened the door to reveal the man who had been in the scrap with Ichigo yesterday. He was on his knees in very well-tailored clothing with his eyes shut in slits and his face had a smile plastered onto it. Yoruichi and Naruto looked on in amusement while Ichigo and his friends looked at him with confusion and rage from the orange-headed substitute Soul Reaper. Ah, Yuu! Ah, Yuu! The simultaneous shouts were met head-on in a clash of sound-fighting sound. Kukaku looked confused not knowing that her brother and the newcomer that Yoruichi brought had met each other before now. Oh how she was terribly wrong as the two charged each other wrestling around throwing fists kicks and themselves around the room in a street brawl. She didn't feel the need to interfere after all boys will be boys, that was until one of the boys bumped into her and caused her pipe to fall into the middle of the fray. Quickly she attempted to pick up the pipe until it was stomped on and became a casualty in the war going on between Ichigo and Ganju. With the death of her pipe anger arose and that anger was projected onto both Ganju and Ichigo as she launched her fist and foot at their heads knocking them onto the ground. Ganju, stop fucking around with the kid. Kid, if you don't like how I run my house, get the fuck out. Placing the pair back on the ground she turned to the rest of group and walked out of the room intent on showing them around her eccentric house so they didn't get lost for the night. Your sister is scary. You have no clue. Picking themselves up, the two kids ran off to meet up with the others, Ganju leading the way since he knew the house better than Ichigo did. They caught up just in time for Ichigo to hear Ryu asking a question. How are there lights without a generator or electrical wiring? Oh, I hung up some light vines in between the ceiling and walls. Is light vine some sort of plant that only grows in the Soul Society? Ah, here we are. They didn't answer my question. While Ryu was sulking, Ganju flung himself to open the door for his sister to try to get on her good side again so he would not be beat up and or destroyed from existence in the process. The contents of the room were revealed to be just a giant black pipe in the middle of the room, which was kinda strange for the group. Turning around, she announced how she intended to get her into the room. This is how I am gonna get you into the court of pure souls. You're gonna be going in from the sky. The sky. How? I'm Kūkaku Shiba, the first-class fireworks master here. Fireworks master. Yep. Koganehiko. Shiroganehiko. Pull us up. Yes ma'am. The twins prepped themselves up and began to turn the bars to pull up the platform of the rather large cannon. While shouting, "Hi!" the twins began to help the platform lift itself off of the ground it once was on. They never stopped shouting until it reached to land above. Amazing, isn't it, kids? This is my personal fireworks station for the Kukaku cannon. Who the hell said you could come up here? Kukaku punched Ganju in the face and sent him skidding across the ground like a stone across the lake. Ryu looked at Kukaku with an irritated look on his face. Stop fooling around. If we were launched from that cannon we would die. Shortly after saying that he was hit in the face with a ball-type object to which Ichigo caught after the ball had bounced from Yuryu's face. Ichigo stared at the weird ball that had some symbol on it with curiosity. What is this? It's a Reishikaku. Go on and try it by giving it your spiritual energy. The following moments were very awkward as Ichigo stared down at the ball and the ball stared back up at him. Nothing was happening and it filled the air with an awkward silence as everyone stared at Ichigo. Oi, how do I give it spiritual energy? Just pour it in like when you use Kido. Ah, Kukaku, he isn't an official Shinigami, so he really doesn't know any Kido. What the hell, Yoruichi? Ganju show you idiot. Okay, hand it over. Ganju leapt over towards Ichigo and attempted to grab the ball but was met with the ground when Ichigo lifted the ball up, leaving Ganju on the dirt. He again leapt only to be met with similar results. He give me the damn thing. I would rather spend the whole day watching Naruto nap. Hey, that's low. Stop fooling around and don't insult Naruto. Kukaku once again had to administer order among the kids and kicked them in their faces. She turned to the rest of the group only to quickly blush when she received some odd looks from the other kids, the lifted eyebrow and amused smirk from Naruto and the peeved look from Yoruichi. Ganju grabbed the ball and began to concentrate, and soon after a big ball appeared around him, shocking the teenage group. This is the cannon ball. If you think that the wall is the only defense of that the Shinigami have, you are dead wrong. The wall is made out of a material that blocks out spiritual pressure. It also releases spiritual pressure, basically meaning that the city is protected by a large sphere of protection. So if we send up with just your bodies, you will be turned to dust when you make contact with the shield, but thanks to my invention you will be able to pass through the shield without dying. This may seem ridiculous, but it is the only way. Now, any questions? No. Good. Now Koganehiko and Shiroganehiko. Take them to the training room. Jumping into action swiftly, the twins scooped up Ichigo, Ishida, and Orihime, but let Chad walk since he was a little big for them to carry. When Ganju was let out of the bubble, he was very tired and was panting heavily as it took a lot out of one person to hold up the cannonball. When he recovered, he looked at his sister with a strange look on his face. Sis, are you really going to help them? What do you mean by that? I will never help a Shinigami. I don't care what you say. I will never help one ever since that day. I thought I told you not to bring that up. Now leave and wipe that pathetic look off your face. In the training room. You're doing it wrong. Ichigo stood in the room with orb, shaking it around with a look of concentration on his face, and his hands were shaking. Overall he looked stupid and laughable with his scrunched up face, getting yelled at by the twins, and Ganju couldn't help but sigh at the group and how pathetic Ichigo looked. Even if he was a Shinigami, he felt pity for him. At the platform. Sorry brother, but I am going to help the Shinigami. Kukaku sat pouring her sake into the cup, then she gulped it all down in one shot. She looked into the empty cup with drips of sake left into it and went off into a past memory. You always loved the Shinigami, and you would probably yell at me if I didn't help them, even if it was a Shinigami that killed you. She poured another cup and gulped it down in one go again. She was so busy reminiscing that she didn't notice that someone was still in her presence, laying on the grass with arms folded behind his head. Isn't it bad for your health to drink it all in one go, Kukaku? Startled by the voice, she turned around to see Naruto laying down on the grass staring at her. Yeah, but that one was for Kyan. They say you shouldn't live in the past. They say it brings nothing good and could get you killed. Yeah. Say, why are you going to that city anyway? Ain't bringing both you and Yoruichi a little overkill? I am going to meet up with some old friends. Oh really, who exactly? Well, you're one of them, the others I don't think you would care about. Upon hearing that he wanted to see her, Kukaku blushed just a tiny bit but then got angry if the tick marks on her head were any clue. Oh really? 'Cause last time seemed a bit different. Inside the house. The twins looked at how the kids were coming along on making their bubbles, and they were easily impressed on how, although not perfect, how fast they were all coming along. All except Ichigo, who was utterly failing at this, not even forming a shape around him, and was getting attacked verbally by the twins with comments like it's terrible and unbelievably horrifying. Hey boss, dinner is ready. Hey you guys, dinner is ready. Ichigo, you can't eat till you're done though. Kurosaki-kun. It's okay, you guys go on ahead, I will be there when I am finished. The group went on into the dinner room and were surprised to find a good meal waiting for them and hungrily dug in. All of them were content with their food except Inoue, who was too worried about Ichigo to eat. After some convenient stomach growls, she ate at least a little bit of her meal. The only ones left in the room were Ichigo and Ganju, who Ichigo threw the ball at when he made some loud noises. "You idiot, shut up, I'm trying to concentrate. Why is that Shinigami girl so important to you? Did you promise to save her? No. Then is there some cash reward you're hoping to get? No. Then why are you trying to damn hard? Because I owe her. She saved my life and my family's life, and now for that she is going to be killed." Ganju moved up to Ichigo and roughly grabbed the Reishikaku and told Ichigo to turn around and cover his ears so he wouldn't hear the secret of his training method with the orb. "First I imagine a dark-colored circle in the sky and I just picture myself jumping through the circle." After those words were spoke, the orb created a bubble around Ganju, making the perfect cannonball. Oh god, that was so easy, even an idiot could do that with those instructions. With that, Ganju made his way towards the door, leaving Ichigo to use his instructions to make a cannonball. Oh boy, did it work, as all around the house people felt an immense spiritual pressure, making everyone stop whatever they were doing to try to find out what was making such a high spiritual pressure. The dinner room. What a huge spirit pressure. It's Kurosaki-kun. Let's go. The platform. What is that brat doing? Well, let's head down there, shall we? With Ichigo. Kukaku and Naruto ran down to the training to see the whole gang standing outside the door with curious looks on their faces, showing that no one but Ganju knew what had happened. "Ganju, what happened?" "Sorry sis, I showed him my method for the bubble and I never expected this to happen." Having enough with all the indirect answers, Kukaku reached her arm out and opened the door. With the door being open, there was a bright light which her eyes had to adjust to. After being properly adjusted to the light, she saw Ichigo in a big ball floating there. "Hey fuckface. Control and refine your energy already, you idiot." After hearing those words, Ichigo began to control his spirit energy until he made a perfect cannonball. He looked at the group with a sense of pride that he had finished making his cannonball, and he gave a thankful look towards Ganju, if only for a brief moment. "I did it. You idiot, don't lose your concentration." The warning came too late, as the cannonball exploded and left Ichigo lying down on the floor face first, with minor burn marks on his clothing with little smoke wisps coming from them. He stood up to see Naruto walking over to him in his usual walking stance, hands in pockets, etc. "Naruto." Naruto pulled one of his hands out of his pockets and was reaching over to Ichigo and put his hand on his shoulder. The two stood staring at each other with Naruto in front of Ichigo until Ichigo was suddenly whipped around and thrown in the wall, easily breaking through it. "Oops. You throw him through a wall and all you can say is oops. Well, I will be going now." With his deed being done, Naruto walked out of the house and off to a nearby tree on the hill, where he pulled out his pack and lit one up and took a few drags. Kukaku shortly left the house also to follow Naruto after she had given instructions on where the group would be sleeping for the night. While on their way back to where they would be sleeping, Orihime had to go to the bathroom and immediately ran off to where Koganehiko told her where it was. After using the restroom, she noticed a slightly open door and curiosity struck her as she saw something shiny in the room. Now Orihime knew she shouldn't go snooping around, but she was naturally curious by what could be the shiny object, so naturally she went inside the room and quickly found it to be Kukaku's room. Inside the room looked normal. There was a bed, drawer, some pictures on the wall. The pictures held many different people in them. Some had her and Ganju, her and some man who looked remarkably like Kurosaki-kun except with purple hair and green eyes, her and Yoruichi, and then a big photo with her, Ganju, Kaien, Yoruichi, Kazuki, and Naruto. All looked happy, even Naruto. Something caught her attention when she looked on top of the drawer to see a silver locket shining because of a reflection of the moon from a mirror. She picked up the locket and examined it. It was quite beautiful silver locket with the Shiba clan symbol in the middle outlined in a gold trim. Quickly she ran with it back to the bedroom to show her friends without second thought. Outside, Kukaku walked outside until she reached a tree on a hill which Naruto was laying under looking at the stars. He turned towards her and motioned her to come sit near him. She walked over and sat by him with her legs folded and watched as he sat himself up too with his legs folded. "Sorry about earlier. Things were different last time and I apologize for what I did. That was a long time ago. I still should have apologized sooner. I just want to know why." In the bedroom, Isn't it beautiful, guys? You took that without asking, didn't you? Well, I wanted to show you guys how beautiful it looks. You just can't go around stealing Orihime. Now give it here and we can return it. When Ishida went to grab it, Orihime put up a struggle trying to convince him that she could take care of it and pulled one end against him. It looked like the locket would break from the pressure of being tugged on at both ends until Ichigo punched Ryu in the face, causing Orihime to fall down due to loss of her balance and the locket to fly up in the air. When the locket landed, it did not break luckily for them, but it did open. Seeing the locket on the floor, Orihime picked it up and looked at Ryu and gave him a look. I will take it back. Her sentence was interrupted as she looked inside the locket and what she saw left her mouth wide open. No. Way. Now that grabbed the group's attention as they never saw Orihime so distracted except that one time when Ichigo answered the door after a shower. But that is a totally different story. It was Ichigo who quickly grabbed the locket when he saw Orihime blush, since out of the group he was the least patient and he too stood with mouth gaped. Ryu and Chad felt the calling of curiosity as the contents of the locket not only left Orihime blushing and speechless but Ichigo too. Ichigo being as stunned as he was let the locket slip into Yuryu's grasp, who held it so both Chad and he could see it, and they both were shocked to the core as they saw what lay inside the locket. At the tree. So you want to know, huh? Yeah. Why did you leave that day? I guess you could say I was afraid of my past catching up with me and the possibilities of what could happen. Naruto. The bedroom. What are you guys? Holy fucking shit. Yoruichi walked in to see a locket laying on the ground and each person in the room staring at it, and so curiosity hit her and she looked at the locket. What she saw shocked her to the core. There inside the locket was a picture of Kukaku laying by a familiar tree outside the compound, but what was shocking was that she was leaning against Naruto, who had his arms around her waist, both of their eyes closed with peaceful smiles on their faces. At the tree. I would never do that. I know that now. Back then things were a little different. I had not come to terms with what had happened. Naruto. Yes, Kukaku. He turned to stare into the face of Kukaku, which was definitely closer than before, seeing as her nose touched his when he turned. His mouth was open a little in confusion and quickly received on answer her lips met his. Kukaku moaned into the kiss and deepened it by using her tongue, which caught Naruto off guard. Well, she always was aggressive. He had no time to think as he kissed her back until they had ran out of air. She looked at him and sighed contentedly as she sat on his lap and laid back against his chest. She leaned her head up and kissed him on the lips before laying against him and drifting off to sleep. Just let me sleep here this one night. Sure, Kukaku-chan. In the morning, the group woke up in an odd daze. All of them groaned and discussed that they can't remember, but something shocked them last night. They met up with Ganju as he led them outside to get ready for launch when everyone including the twins saw Naruto and Kukaku allying against the tree. Ichigo, Chad, Orihime, Ishida, and Yoruichi all had a quick memory jog as they remembered the locket, and then they looked at the scene in front of them. Orihime thought it was romantic and was something that she would hope one day to do with Ichigo. But she didn't tell the Ichigo part to her friends. Chad thought it was good that they found someone, and Ryu just stood there neutral on the whole thing. While Ichigo was laughing his ass off as Ganju cried to the gods about his sister's choice of men. It's rude to yell at someone when they're trying to sleep, you know. Ganju turned to see Naruto with his eyes open looking at him. But then again, it is rude to talk ill about the dead. Ganju was confused but then looked at his sister and was met with nothing but death's eyes devoid of compassion and filled with anger. She charged him, smashing him into the forest. He flew like a wrecking ball through the trees, destroying them upon impact. Getting up to the disappointment of Kukaku, Naruto stood and lit a cigarette. Let's go. The group walked over to the platform and Kukaku turned to face the group but looked confused. Where's that idiot? You kicked him. Oh. Yeah. Okay, I'm here and ready to go. Go. What do you mean? Listen, my brother was killed by a Shinigami. He was betrayed by one of his own, and even in death he never spoke ill of them. You Ichigo are different from other Shinigami. I know if I lend you guys a hand and help you out, I will find the reason he never spoke ill of them. After the heartfelt speech by Ganju, the group lined up ready to enter the cannon when Ichigo suddenly stopped and pointed at Yoruichi. Wait, can Yoruichi make the cannonball, and what about Naruto? Yoruichi jumped of the ball and instantly the cannonball appeared around here perfectly on her first try. Ichigo fell on the ground feeling inferior as everyone seemed to get it naturally and he had to work his ass off to get it down. He was met with more disappointment when Naruto walked up to the orb and took one of his hands out of his pocket and grabbed the orb with one hand, and once again a perfect cannonball appeared. Okay, I'm not waiting anymore, all of you inside, and Ganju we're going to be using method number 2. Of course sis. Kukaku slammed her hand against the cannon and it opened up so the group could get inside. They made a circle around each with one hand on the orb. Kukaku began to paint the required seals to launch to the cannon, and when she was finished she threw the large paintbrush away across the field. She started the chant required. There. The red bronze desire demands 36 degrees of adjustment. It's starting pour in your energy. 13 pair of whistle. 72 pair of shade. The ape's right hand grabs the star. Embracing 25 suns, the cradle as of sand is bleeding. Kukaku style version 2. Kagizaki. Kukaku looked up in the sky as the cannonball launched with some tears in the corner of her eyes. Take care of yourself Ganju, and you too Naruto. In the cannonball. That wasn't so bad. Idiot, it just began. With that the cannonball sped off at high intense speeds that made the group scream. Ganju bit his thumb and pulled out a scroll with words scribbled on it. He glanced down at the words but was having a hard time reading because Naruto had decided it was a good time to smoke in a bubble where smoke couldn't escape. Ganju was beginning the follow-up incantation when the group tried to adjust to their spiritual energy input to match each other. Kurosaki-kun, you're a little strong. Okay. Lower it Kurosaki. I know I am. Ichigo. I know. With all that arguing going on, Ganju messed up the second incantation and they all had a look of fear go around except Yoruichi and Naruto. Quick to take command, Yoruichi started giving out orders as the cannonball started to become unstable. Pour in all your energy, it's our only chance. Inside the court of pure souls. It seemed like a normal day for the city until the shouts of intruders went out. All the captains were looking for any signs of the intruders until they heard an odd sound in the sky. Each Shinigami looked up to see a ball flying down onto the city and quickly screams were released in confusion. The fuck is that? Oh my god, we're all gonna die. Only more chaos was released when the ball collided with the barrier around the city. Each Shinigami looked to see what would win, the ball of doom or the city's shield of protection. It looked like the ball was losing until it burst open and the intruders fell into the city slightly but seemed to be floating in air. What the hell is going on? We are being held temporarily, soon we will be shot out in different directions like in a tornado unless we do something. Quickly grab the person nearest to you. Ichigo unluckily got stuck with Ganju while Chad and Orihime were next to each other. Chad saw Ryu being forced out of the tornado. Acting quickly, he threw himself at Ishida and tossed him back towards Orihime. Seconds later he was launched off in a direction. Sato. Chad. This is gonna. The group turned as Naruto was flung away with a cigarette in his mouth off in some random direction, hands still in his pockets and flying away on his back head first was never gonna be a great landing. The rest of the group too was flung, each going in the cardinal directions except Naruto, who went off in some weird ass direction. Each group was preparing to land and protect themselves from a terrible death by falling. Inoue prepped her shield to ease the landing for herself and Ishida, while Chad had his arm ready to soften the blow. Ganju was preparing a sand pit below himself and Ichigo. Naruto though was complaining about Yoruichi coming along. You just had to come with me, didn't you? Just shut up and help us land. Yeah, about that. He was cut off as he smashed into a nearby building, completely destroying the roof and floor below him. Normally he should have died, but luckily he had his Hueco to severely reduce the damage done to him. Standing up, he noticed his cigarette had survived the crash, picked it up and dusted himself off and walked down the street with hands in the pockets. With Inoue and Ishida, they quickly gathered their surroundings after Inoue had awoken and had her arm bandaged. They were quick to move stealthily. With Ganju and Ichigo, two heads popped out of the sandpit spitting out sand by the gallons. The two heads looked up to see the Shinigami, one a bald-headed man and the other very interesting looking with some odd eyebrows. Both of the Shinigami were grinning. With Chad, the big man stood in the tree as he saw some Shinigami run by and was quick to begin looking for his friends. Ichigo and Ganju stared at the opponents they had to face. Inevitably one was a bald man and quite average looking besides the bloodthirsty grin, while the other seemed a tad bit more eccentric with the neck warmer and odd eyebrow feather things. Ganju began to sweat as he felt their spiritual pressure, and clearly they seemed to be two of the higher-ranking Shinigami. Ganju was never one to be afraid. He would rather fight than run from an opponent, but he also was a very bright man and knew when it looked bad and seemed that he couldn't win. After contemplating the various choices of action he settled on a very good choice that would help both him and Ichigo out. Ganju ran. "Ya bye Ichigo. Good luck." "What? Where the hell do you think you're going?" Ichigo was very confused right now. Not only had this bald man do some sort of goofy-ass dance, but Ganju had just booked it and ran away from him. At least in compensation, one of the Shinigami had ran off after Ganju, leaving Ichigo to fight the bald man. Turning to his opponent, he charged him wildly and made a slash at his bald head. The bald man parried the attack with his own Zanpakuto and made a slash at Ichigo, only for him to dodge and jab Zangetsu at his head once more. Kukaku slashed at Ichigo while trying to dodge the blade aimed for his head, only to not completely dodge the blow, but he did nick his opponent too. He looked as blood dripped down from above his eyebrow and his opponent's as well. Ichigo wiped some of the blood off of his face to clear up his vision. Looking at his opponent, he received an irritated look. "You really shouldn't take your sword from your blade in a battle." "Listen, I had fucking blood in my eye, so shut up. It won't stop the bleeding, you idiot." Kukaku grabbed and removed the end of his sheath to reveal a secret compartment full of ointment, which he used to effectively stop the bleed from his forehead. He smirked and looked at his opponent. "You cheater, you're using ointment." "It's not cheating, it's called being prepared." They both paused for a moment till Kukaku pursed his lips. "Who was your teacher?" "Seeing as he only taught me for 10 days, I don't know if you would call him a teacher, but his name was Urahara Kazuki." "I see, then I shouldn't hold back against you, it would be rather rude." Kukaku placed the end of his sheath and the end of the handle of his Zanpakuto together and shouted as loud as he could. "Grow longer Hoozukimaru." His once sword now turned into a very long spear. Shortly after this transformation, Kukaku charged at Ichigo, screaming at him to not miss it. Ichigo did all that he could to parry the spear every time that it was jabbed at him. After around 3 jabs, Ichigo was seeing that it took Kukaku longer to strike than it did with his normal blade and was feeling pretty confident. All that confidence was shot down when, with the sudden cry of "Split Hoozukimaru," the once thought spear slipped into 3 parts, passing through his parry and the blade slashing at his face, ready to cleave his head from his shoulders. Ichigo did the only thing he could think of at the time and blocked the blade with his right arm, earning a very deep gash. "Hoozukimaru isn't a spear, it's a Sansetsuken. You probably cannot even use that arm to hold your sword, can you?" Kukaku was met with surprise as Ichigo, with a fresh bandage wrapped around his arm, charged at him and cleaved the wall behind him, causing massive destruction to the wall, easily breaking it. He turned and charged at Kukaku, who blocked with the middle section of Hoozukimaru and whipped around Ichigo's defense with the bladed section of his Sansetsuken. Ichigo leapt backwards to avoid the blow, only for Kukaku to charge forward, forcing him to parry the blade. He saw Kukaku's grin back plastered on his face and got a horrible feeling. All those feelings were confirmed as Kukaku jabbed the blunt end of Hoozukimaru, knocking Ichigo back some feet flat on his ass. "Meh, at this rate you will never keep up with me." "Oh really, I think I am doing just fine." Ichigo opened his hand to drop pieces of the fur at the end of Hoozukimaru. Kukaku watched in shock as the pieces floated down to the ground and looked at his Sansetsuken in horror, as not only was the fur missing but a piece had chipped off. He blocked it with his bare hand. "Let's see you keep up with this." Ichigo dashed at Kukaku's Zangetsu in hand and performed a full arc swing down onto the awaiting defense of Hoozukimaru, only for the defense to be easily crushed, breaking the end section of Hoozukimaru in half and leaving an enormous wound on Kukaku's chest. To Ichigo's surprise, Kukaku still had both hands on his weapon and was still standing. "If you're gonna beat me, you're gonna have to kill me." Kukaku gave a final charge at Ichigo and tried to slash him in half, only for Ichigo to not only disarm him but leave another gaping wound on his arm. Kukaku fell to the ground in a thud, muttering about Ichigo being too strong and himself being rather unlucky. Some time later, Kukaku opened his eyes, not to be met with whatever life he would live after dying twice, but to find he was still alive, well alive after dying. He turned his head up to see Ichigo staring at him while sitting upon a piece of rubble from the recently destroyed wall. "So you're finally up. Why didn't I die from blood loss?" "Oh, I took your Zanpakuto. Give it back. Ungrateful fuck. Anyway, I took the medicine from it and patched us both up. unfortunately between both of us I used all the medicine. Now I got some questions that I want answers to. No, I am not gay for you. What? Not that you ass, I want to know where Kuchiki Rukia is. That girl who is going to be executed. Why would you want to know that? I am here to rescue her. Rescue her? How many are with you? 8 or 9 including you. There are 6 people here including 1 cat in total. Ahahahahaha. Oh fuck, my wound opened up. Just tell me where she is, you. Aha. Dot aha. Ha, phew, okay, you see that huge ass white tower up there. Kukaku pointed in a direction with his index finger and Ichigo turned his attention to where he was pointed to be greeted with the sight of a long and narrow white tower separated from the mainland via bridge. That is where she is. If you don't mind me asking, who is the strongest in your group? The strongest? I don't know, Naruto is a mystery to me, but I guess that would be me. Why? Then it is you whom my captain will go after. Beware Kurosaki Ichigo for my captain Zaraki Kenpachi. With Ganju. Ganju hung there single-handedly hanging from the ledge. If he were to fall it would certainly lead to his death, as below him was nothing but darkness and seemingly endlessness. Ganju though had a smirk on his face and pursed his lips. Our views on beauty is just different. I was told whoever was the survivor was the coolest. Ganju pressed his hand against the ledge and suddenly a portion of the wall disintegrated into sand, causing Yumashika to slip and fall into the hole below him if not for him to grabbing the ledge with a single hand. Ganju, taking his opportunity, launched himself up using Yumashika's head as a leverage. After gaining balance on the surface, Ganju bent down on his knees as he saw his opponent getting up from dangling. You think that would beat me? Ganju's response was quick and deadly. Renkinspassen. A large crater of the earth in front of Ganju started to slide into the depths below, forcing Yumashika to think on his head as he saw he couldn't jump forward or he too would slip from the smooth surface. Instead he chose to jump high up into the air and was about to gloat about how Ganju's move had failed him until he saw the ugly oaf in mid-pitch with a very dangerous looking bomb in his hands. Here it comes. Oh shit, no. The result was a massive fireworks show in the sky which looked very beautiful but also let Ichigo know where he was. Ganju couldn't help but smirk at the fact he defeated a 5th seat Soul Reaper. With Ishida and Orihime, open your wings and fly high, Sunzukigarasu. Ishida watched as the man pressed down on his blade and caused many flying blades to come from the former sword floating around him at seemingly high speeds. Looking at the man he could tell that the Shinigami had thought that he had won instantly and was very overconfident in himself. Hey, you probably can even see what happened, can you? Right now there many blades fly around us but you can't even keep up with them. This is why I am called Zairubo, the wind side. All that confidence he built up was instantly destroyed when every single blade that had been spinning had seemingly been obliterated by a high-speed force that he himself couldn't even keep up with. Acting quickly he tried to redraw the blades from his Zanpakuto only for them to be shattered before even being fully removed from the sheath. Seems that I am better than you. You little brat, you will regret this. Zairubo turned and reached towards the orange-haired girl in an attempt to injure or kill her but was quickly stopped when Ishida appeared in front of him with his bow ready to kill. I think that you will regret trying to do what you were about to do. Ishida quickly shot a spirit arrow at the man in his chest, making Zairubo fly back in a bloody heap on his back. Orihime thanked Ryu and the both left the man alive, but he could never access his spiritual powers again. With Naruto and Yoruichi, it was awfully peaceful for the pair as Naruto walked down the road casually, not in a hurry whatsoever, seemingly taking everything in stride, with Yoruichi on his shoulder quite quiet for once. Now to anyone but someone from the group of invaders they would think that this man knew exactly where he was going as he walked without hesitation when making turns, just looking forward. But if you were Yoruichi, do you have any clue where you are going? Not one bit. Why exactly aren't you considering other directions? Don't really feel like taking am I like this way better? He approached some set of stairs and casually walked up them with hands in his pocket and cigarette in his mouth. After coming to an intersection he decided to make a right which led him through some buildings that he was unfamiliar with, but then again all the buildings here he was unfamiliar with. Naruto, I have to tell you, if we keep heading in this direction we may run into trouble. Yeah. You might be right. But then again you were never that good with directions. What's that supposed to mean? With the sudden appearance of small scratches appearing across his nose, Naruto had to choose his next words carefully, otherwise he would have to deal with a very angry and deadly cat. Nothing, Yoruichi, nothing. With that being said, he continued his trek throughout the Seraiti peacefully until his journey led him into a dead end with only a door as his option of continuing the journey. Naruto stood there for a full 5 minutes contemplating on what exactly he should and quickly shrugged his shoulders and walked forward, grabbing the doorknob. Inside the lieutenant meeting room, Haruno Sakura, current 3rd seat of the 4th division, was giving out a list of injury reports from people of all divisions and was just concluding the list to the lieutenants as her lieutenant could not attend the meeting. Although we are getting minor injury reports from all the divisions, 3rd seat Madarame Akaku and 5th seat Ayasagame Yumashika are heavily injured. The worst part is that it seems the 11th division has been completely wiped out. No way, who are those monsters? Our 4th seat hasn't reported in too. You mean Zairubo the Wind Scythe? While all this commotion was going on, Lieutenant of the 6th Division Abarai Renji merely heard the words that they're signs of 2 intruders, one being a Shinigami with orange hair heading towards the center of the Seraiti. After making a quick decision, Renji stormed out of the room, slamming the door without looking back. He was soon noticed to be gone by Lieutenant of the 5th Division Hinamori Momo, who quickly re-slammed the door open to see where he was going off, to only to hear a yell. With Naruto. Although a man like Naruto was very skilled and versatile, even he could not predict the future or act in time to stop what was going to happen. As he reached out, grabbed the knob, the door was suddenly slammed in his face, almost causing him to fall over the railing behind him, which would have been very uncomfortable for him. Oh, Naruto turned to see who the jackass was that slammed the door in his face. He saw a determined-looking redhead with various tattoos on his body and face. Being distracted by the man, he did not notice the door be swung open again and was once again knocked in the face by the very hard door. What the fuck? This time the door actually caused him to lose his balance and unfortunately slip off the rail and fall from the very tall height of the building down onto the rooftops below. Hinamori was very concerned about Renji until she had heard the cry of, "What the fuck?" and quickly turned to see a man falling off of a railing. Gasping, she ran to the side of the railing to see what was happening to the man, only to see him plunging head first to what seemed like his certain doom, crashing into the top of the building, bringing up a cloud of dust with him. One thing that eluded Momo was the black cat running across the rooftops, but then again something big just happened, so you cannot blame her for not noticing. Taking quick action, Momo jumped down carefully to avoid her injury as well, but to check up on the man who had fallen quite a fair distance that no normal could really have survived, especially one that was falling head first in a dive bomb. Once she reached the crash site, she ran in the house through the hole the man had made and found him lying in a crater attempting to light up a cigarette. Wah. How? Who? Oh hi. What the heck is going on? I am lighting a cigarette. How can you be okay? No Soul Reaper would be unfazed by something like. Are you going to attack me now? I really don't feel like dealing with this. Momo quickly leapt back to gain a space between her and the Ryoka, while Naruto got up and dusted himself off from the debris that had gotten onto his shirt and pants. Looking at the female Soul Reaper, he noticed that she was not one bit nervous about facing himself. She had both hands on her Zanpakuto and seemed ready to fight him. However, before either one of them did anything, the door behind them was opened up by Shinigami that were patrolling the nearby area. Running behind Naruto, the Shinigami spread out, forming a triangle formation, hoping to use teamwork to overcome the Ryoka. Naruto turned around to see just who these Shinigami are and noticed the lack of a lieutenant band, so they couldn't be all that powerful. Naruto-kun. It was at this time Naruto actually looked the faces of the Shinigami that came to stop him and found them very familiar, and unfortunately he recognized them. Great. This just makes things more complicated. 5th Nara Shikamaru. 8th seat Hyuga Hinata. Do you know this man? Hi Lieutenant. You're being rather rude, leaving me out of a conversation about me. Shikamaru and Hinata both looked at Naruto, studying his features. Sure, he had gotten taller, hair grew longer, had on different clothes, but those whisker marks, blue eyes, and face could only belong to one man, even if he had some weird bone-like markings under his eyes or bone-like fox eyes sticking out of his hair. Naruto, although it's good to see you, I have to ask, what are you? Why that question, Shikamaru? Because we know you're not a Soul Reaper, but you're not a Hollow either. Actually, you're wrong. I am a Hollow. To further prove his point, Naruto reached to his shirt and unbuttoned it a little bit to show his hollow hole on his sternum, and while the unbuttoning of the shirt was happening, one Hyuga Hinata was furiously blushing due to her crush still existing even after death. Once the hollow hole was clearly viewable by all parties, Hinamori took action, classifying Naruto as a threat and dashed at Naruto, intending to plunge her sword through him, which would effectively mutilate him. Naruto simply took one step to the right, allowing the sword to plunge into more air, passing him harmlessly, reached down and grab her wrist and whip her around and throw her back in the direction she started from into the wall, destroying it on impact. Hinata and Shikamaru could not even believe what they had just saw, as Naruto, the dead last in the realm of the living, destroyed a lieutenant in seconds. Nobody from when they were alive could do that in the time it took Naruto, not even Jiraiya. Well, she was a bit impatient. No. Naruto, you've grown strong. Flattery won't get you anywhere, Shikamaru. Naruto-kun, why are you here? So your stutter went away, hem. Well, I am here to help a strawberry catch a rabbit-loving girl, of course. Naruto-kun, why don't you just stop now and we can get Yamamoto Saotaicho to let you live in the Seraiti and you be here with us, and me. That is a very silly idea. We both know that your Saotaicho would kill me, and I am currently involved with someone. Now, if you don't mind. Snapped Tobiyame. Naruto glanced back to the rubble pile on the ground and was just a tad bit surprised to see a rather large fireball coming bursting forth, aimed at him. Using his quick instincts, Naruto dived and rolled out of the way, leaving Hinata and Shikamaru to face the fireball, to which they too dodged. Hinamori leapt up onto her feet and had an evil smirk on her face as suddenly Naruto appeared to be stuck in a web of some sort. I am not that strong in sword fights or hand-to-hand combat, but I do excel in Kido, and the moment you touched my wrist I had caught you in my web. That is pretty clever. I guess you are not a lieutenant just for show. And now I end this. Once again Momo launched a fireball from her Zanpakuto, but this time it was traveling down the web straight towards Naruto, and just before it was going to hit Naruto, an orange beam shot out of the hand that the web was connected to and traveled up the web, destroying the fireball and the web until it hit Hinamori, sending her back into the rubble, a bloody mess. It's too bad I am not just for show either. Now Shikamaru, I really must go. With that being said, Naruto used Sonito and disappeared before their eyes, leaving behind a very shocked Shikamaru and an equally surprised Hinata. Meanwhile, with Naruto, we could see him using Sonito to approach to a familiar spiritual power, one from very long ago. I guess with Yoruichi gone it's safe to visit some very old friends without her in harm's way. He continued his journey until he reached a very big building with a symbol on it of some number. Naruto leapt on top of the building to see just whose spiritual pressure he was feeling. He wasn't disappointed when he saw who he would having a reunion with. The man was sitting on what Naruto had assumed his roof with a grin on his face. The man turned to Naruto and stood up with his white haori blowing in the wind and usual Shinigami outfit on, with his sword on his waist. It has been a while, hasn't it, Naruto? I thought you were dead though. Are you coming back to haunt me? Afraid so. After all, once you found out I was here I knew I would have to fight you. Does Aizen know that I am alive yet? No, I wasn't so sure that you were back there, but this confirms it. Good, I would rather kill you and not deal with Aizen. Let's finish this. Jin being quick on the draw activated his Zanpakuto and shot it at Naruto on insane speeds, only for the blade to meet another as Naruto's Zanpakuto seemingly appeared from nowhere. Jin retracted his Zanpakuto but was surprised as Naruto grabbed it with his bare hands and was incoming towards Jin with his blade ready to slash him. Quickly thinking, Jin shot his blade out again, this time in the roof, smashing Naruto in the ground below them. Hopping in the hole he created in his roof, Jin tried and impale Naruto's skull with his blade, only for Naruto to roll out of the way. Naruto got up and slashed at Jin's head from the right side, only to be parried. Quickly Naruto tried a left hook, only to be grabbed by Jin's other hand. Both of them were in a deadlock, each struggling to push the other back until both leapt back, creating a space between them. Jin shot Shinso, only for Naruto to raise his Zanpakuto to knock Shinso upwards and off course. Using this opening, Naruto used Sonito to appear right before Jin with his Zanpakuto already in mid-swing, ready to cleave Ichimaru in half, to which Jin responded by using Shunpo to get behind Naruto. Although Jin was very surprised when his face was hit by a kick courtesy of Naruto doing a spinning roundhouse. Jin stumbled back from the hit and was barraged by Naruto in a fierce combo. He started with a strong left hand jab, making Ichimaru bend over, Then he followed up with a knee to face, causing him to fling his head up. Naruto continued the attack with a slash across Jin's chest and then a spinning kick with his left leg to the back of Jin's head, sending him crashing into the ground. To his disappointment, Naruto's opponent had stood up and had the trademark fox-like grin on his face with his eyes squinted. "You sure are better than I remember, Naruto." Jin launched himself at Naruto and launched a flurry of swings and slashes, to which Naruto had tried to counter or parry with his own slashes and stabs, all of which were blocked until he found himself disarmed as his Zanpakuto was flung out a window into the city below, a long drop too, easily a 100-foot drop. Jin laughed and had Shinso pointed at Naruto's chest on the right side. "You scared, Naruto?" "Not really." Naruto had his hand palm outward at Jin's left side of his chest, in the same place where Jin had Shinso pointed at, which was around where the shoulder and collarbone were, but just a tad bit under them. "Whatever happened to you, dear Naruto? You were a very good Arrancar. I just didn't feel like the meaningless fighting over and over again." "That's just Nell talking. You are an Arrancar. You were made to fight. You live to fight." In that moment, Jin's Shinso had shot into Naruto's chest, piercing through him in a bloody mess, while at the same time Naruto had shot a Sero through Jin's chest, causing another blood stain on the surround wall and floor. Naruto had fallen back onto his back while clutching his chest as it bled, while Jin had stumbled a bit and put on his grin when he saw the look Naruto gave him. "I can see you want to kill me. It just proves you still live to fight." Jin tightened his grip on Shinso and with his other hand grabbed Naruto's leg and threw him up into the ceiling, while for the final time shot Shinso out at Naruto, this time piercing his stomach, and kept extending his Zanpakuto until Naruto was dangling above the cliff another 20 feet. What Jin didn't see was Naruto pull his right hand off of the wound on his chest with blood covering it and whisper 3 words. "Gran Rei Sero." Instantly a giant orange beam was shot down, destroying Shinso in the process, and continued on its path towards Jin. Jin looked at the beam with fright as it descended down onto him, destroying his building completely, as all the Soul Society could see the beam. All around people heard the massive explosion that had happened in the 3rd Division and saw the beam, and instantly Unohana and Azane rushed over with a platoon of medics ready to tend to those that were hurt. With Ichigo and Ganju, the hell happened there? With Ishida and Orihime, that was Naruto's spiritual pressure. With Chad, Naruto. With Naruto. Naruto was beginning to stop floating in the air and finally began his free fall down head first. While he had 2 massive wounds on his stomach and his shoulder, and he was free falling at a height not even his hero would leave him unscathed, all he could think was, "Shit, I am out of cigarettes." Naruto quickly smashed into the ground, destroying buildings with just the shockwave from him colliding with the ground. In a crater he laid there, a bloody mess, with his eyelids getting heavier to keep open. He heard one last thing before he didn't have the strength to keep consciousness: a female cry of, "Naruto." The end. Now we will see you in the next video.